Ushi hovered over the ice, circling once more. The water, there is filthy. Do you want to be contaminated? Yinlin quickly shook its head and swiftly followed behind AC. The trio, one human and two sea beasts, hurried toward the iceberg cage. The structure sealed off the sea completely. So Gushi simply stepped on her spikes and soared over the 100-meter-high icy wall. Meanwhile, AC grabbed Yinlin, conjuring an ice pillar from the sea to lift them both onto the wall. Once steadied, Yinlin trembled with lingering fear. Uft! So high. Gurgle, your true form is much larger than this. What's there to fear? Uft! But I'm not that big now. AC shot a glance, and Yinlin fell silent. From its perch on the icy wall, Yinlin's gaze slowly drifted downward into the ice birdcage, revealing a scene both mysterious and spine-chilling. The cage's walls stood as a colossal barrier, dividing the inner and outer seas. Outside, sunlight refracted off the water, casting shimmering azure glimmers, while inside lay a stagnant, abyssal darkness. Deep within the enclosed waters, shadowy corpses lay submerged, some mangled, others bloated and distorted, drifting slowly with the faint currents. The seawater seemed steeped in gloom, exuding an aura of decay and frigidity. To think it's deteriorated this much in less than 2 days, Gushi murmured in astonishment, floating behind the two sea beasts. So many. Confronted with the sight, Yinlin was taken aback. It turned to AC and Gushi, asking in shock, "Did you two kill all these?" No, it wasn't us, the virus did. At most, we only hindered their movements. Gushi's observation was accurate. The zombie sea beasts were already deceased creatures, and both her new weapons' unique properties and Ace's innate abilities could maximally restrict their movements. Alternative methods of attack might not have guaranteed their containment. Hearing this, Yinlin felt a pang of apprehension. Regardless of the truth, confronting such a multitude of sea beasts was no trivial matter. Ready? Then let's proceed. I'm SS rank. If there are SS rank remains here, my flames might not incinerate them. Don't worry, the SS ranks have already been pulverized by Ace. Then why didn't he turn them all to dust? Yinlin's question left Gushi momentarily speechless. The primary reason these zombie sea beasts weren't completely annihilated was her desire for training. But she couldn't bring herself to admit it. Doing so would imply she was responsible for the entire situation. Ace, noticing her hesitation, offered a rare explanation. Pururu, even if I crushed them all into dust, the sources of contamination would persist. Pururu, remains are still remains, even as dust, but fire is different. Yinlin's aquatic flames can incinerate these, purifying the seawater. His words seemed to affirm the potency of Yinlin's flames, instantly lifting her spirits. You're absolutely right. Stepping back a few paces to distance herself from Ace, Yinlin composed herself, shedding all previous emotions, and fixed her gaze on the floating zombie sea beast carcasses in the water. Despite her long years of existence, the sight still sickened her. Gushi also retreated slightly, intently watching the underwater movements. She had never witnessed flames that could burn in water before. According to Ace, their power was extraordinary, and she grew increasingly curious about how they differed from the flames she had seen in the arena. Ace waited impassively, eager to conclude the matter, round up the remaining sea beasts for drills, and have Yinlin tend to the fields. Suddenly, Yinlin opened her maw, etched with flame-like patterns, and gathered spiritual energy deep within her throat. With a low roar, a torrent of spiritual energy transformed into azure-violet flames, surging from her mouth like agile serpents, swiftly darting toward the seawater beneath the ice cage. Upon contact with the frigid water, the azure-violet flames did not extinguish as ordinary fire would. Instead, they blazed joyfully, casting the surrounding sea into an eerie, cold world of blue and purple. The flames snaked through the water, causing it to boil and bubble vigorously in their wake. Is the water boiling? Gushi exclaimed in astonishment at the effervescent sea. Pururu, that's a corrosive effect. Corroding seawater? Gushi was incredulous, recalling Ace's earlier mention of purification. Pururu, not corroding the water itself, but burning away the impurities within. The sea beasts won't affect the water. Gushi glanced towards Yinlin, noticing its intense gaze fixed upon the fiery trails. Its claws dug firmly into the edges of the ice cage, its body trembling faintly. The continuous, unceasing blue-violet flames radiated immense spiritual energy, palpable to her senses. Concerned, Gushi inquired of AC, is it all right? AC could effortlessly freeze such a vast expanse. A feat owed to his SSS rank, yet Yinlin, merely an SS rank, risked depleting its spiritual reserves to incinerate the submerged skeletal remains beneath the sea. Paruru. It's fine. It will cease if overwhelmed, and there's no need for such strenuous output, came the response. Gushi's eyes widened in astonishment, her face a canvas of surprise. So, this is its own doing. Paruru, likely a venting of pent-up emotions, having endured slavery for so long. And its earlier outburst to eliminate the mermen was halted by me. Though AC left the thought unfinished, Gushi comprehended. Sometimes, it's best to let Yinlin release its fury. Beneath the waves, the aquatic flames surged and spread rapidly. Upon contact with the zombie sea beast remains, the decaying flesh swiftly blackened and carbonized. The flames, as if alive, voraciously consumed the carcasses, enveloping them entirely from the ignition points. Perched on the icy wall, Gushi listened to the crackling sounds of the burning remains, while foul odors swiftly assaulted her nostrils. She raised a hand to cover her nose, yet her gaze remained steadfast on the sea surface. Through her spiritual perception, she could distinctly sense fragmented bones detaching from the remains, glowing pallidly in the fire's reflection. As the flames persisted, the surrounding seawater grew turbulent, forming small whirlpools that churned with blackened residues spiraling outward. These waters collided with the ice cage, only to recoil and surge back. Gradually, the skeletal remnants vanished into nothingness. Yet the blue-violet flames showed no sign of abating. Paruru. Enough. AC lifted a hand to halt Yinlin's relentless spiritual discharge. Pushio. No, it's not enough. Yinlin seemed determined to pour all its hatred into the inferno. Chapter 269. Ice Basin burns the sea. Both AC and Yinlin were in their diminished forms, appearing nearly equal in height. Standing together, the ice and fire beasts embodied a natural dichotomy, like two opposing realms. AC, let burn. Gushi suddenly stated with calm resolve. Paruru, but continuing is futile. AC protested, yet he relinquished his efforts to restrain Yinlin, oblivious to their exchange. Yinlin immersed itself wholly in the conflagration. The sea blazed with rampant flames, the once deep waters hinting at a descent into hellish chaos. Perched atop the ice cage, Gushi faced the rising steam, a stark contrast to the frigid walls of ice surrounding her. A single expanse of ocean, two extremes coexisting. The sensation of simultaneously enduring icy cold and infernal heat is far from pleasant. AC, let's descend first, Gushi decided. Since her intended task was complete, she planned to withdraw. AC gave a slight nod, casting a fleeting glance at Yinlin before departing. Gushi swiftly rode down on sharp spikes, while AC descended atop an elevator-like pillar of ice. As they neared the frozen surface, Gushi leaped off the spikes, her mind shifting from returning to the ship as a sudden thought struck her. She beckoned AC over and said, "The remains inside have been dealt with. It makes no sense to keep this sea sealed any longer." Thaw the ice birdcage. Paruru? But isn't Yinlin still burning? AC thought he must have misheard, responding with confusion. Let it burn as it will, and we'll thaw our part. There's no conflict, Gushi explained simply. Standing at the base of the ice wall, she gazed upward at the colossal barrier that blocked the entire sea. Even if AC withdrew his spiritual energy, it would take a long time for it to melt naturally. What it needs is an outlet for its hatred. Releasing the underwater flames to burn the sea is merely a way to vent its emotions. As long as we don't hinder its burning, there should be no issue. Paruru? AC didn't fully grasp Gushi's straightforward explanation, but he was adept at seizing the key point. Paruru. If we thaw the ice wall and pillars, it might fall. Gushi paused, then replied dryly, well then, leave one pillar for it. She gestured with her hands. Not too thick, just this wide enough for it to stand on. AC nodded, somewhat understanding, and immediately set to work. Wait, Gushi called out abruptly, having nearly forgotten. Once the sea opens up and the water begins to flow, the fish will start swimming around. Yinlin may need to vent its emotions, but those innocent fish don't deserve to be burned. Blinking, AC looked at her inquiringly. Think of how an octopus boils water in a pot, she suggested. Use ice to create a container, so the underwater flames can't escape beyond it. Recalling the image of an octopus heating water by tossing fire essence into a filled pot, AC realized the underwater flames were akin to that essence. Paruru. I understand, he exclaimed. Pleased, Gushi then worried the seawater might not be sufficient, so she specifically instructed AC to fill the container with more water. Thus, AC's task evolved. First, melt the ice bird cage, then raise the ice basin at the bottom to float on the surface, serving as Yinlin's pot. Perched atop a 100-meter ice pillar, Yinlin continued to channel its spiritual energy, generating underwater flames. For an SS-grade sea beast, this output was but a trivial expenditure. Initially, it had released the underwater flames into the sea out of duty, but as it did, the sight of the sea beast's remains evoked memories of countless battles in the arena. It never desired such outcomes, filled with bitterness and resentment, yet compelled to slay other sea beasts against its will. Though the submerged creatures weren't killed by it, Yinlin felt as if the burning corpses were those of the sea beasts it had defeated in the arena, each one a haunting echo of its past. It burns as an offering, a tribute to what was lost. It escaped that cage, yet countless sea creatures remain imprisoned forever. Suddenly, a rushing sound of water reaches its ears. Flamescale turns toward the source and sees the icy birdcage beginning to melt. Aware that Gushi and AIC have descended below, it gazes down in astonishment at its own precarious perch. Crack! The ice wall beyond its reach fractures, spiderweb fissures spreading across its surface. Along with the shattering ice comes AIC's overwhelming psychic energy, flooding the surroundings. Peering downward, Flamescale confirms AIC standing upon the ice, dismantling the once majestic structure he had constructed. Massive chunks of ice break away, sinking slowly into the ocean's depths. The ice pillar beneath its feet, however, remains steadfast, showing no sign of dissolution. Such precise mastery of psychic control. Flamescale marvels, contemplating its next move. Just then, a voice pierces the air. Gushi, not using psychic power, but shouting from below, Flamescale, keep burning. Staring at the solitary ice column supporting it, a wave of resentment dissipates like the melting walls, and a desire to descend stirs within. Abruptly, another rush of water sounds from behind. Spinning around, it witnesses a colossal ice basin emerging from the sea. Seawater swirling into small vortices that buffet its edges. Under AIC's psychic guidance, the basin rises steadily, floating securely to the surface. Soon, it rests upon the water, filled with ocean and, astonishingly, all of Flamescale's aquatic flames. Dumbfounded, Flamescale struggles for words. Gushi's voice echoes once more, Flamescale, burn freely, aim for the basin. A peculiar emotion wells up inside. It understands her intent to let it vent, yet the method feels inexplicably odd. The urge to burn fades, replaced by a longing to descend. Using psychic communication, Flamescale reaches out to AIC, thinking, since he sent me up, he should bring me down. Blub blub? What did you say? AIC responds, having just finished crafting the pot. PSHH. I said, send me down. It's certain now. A sea creature perched on a 100-meter ice pillar defies all reason. Blub blub. The sea wind is too loud. I can't hear you. PSHH. You. I won't burn anymore. I want to descend. Blub blub. The waves are too loud, I can't hear. How could psychic dialogue be inaudible? Flamescale knows AIC is toying with it. But what can it do? Any sea creature or deep-sea dweller understands the capricious nature of an SSS-level being. Though AIC may not embody arrogance, he epitomizes whimsy in its purest form. With a resigned sigh, it leaned forward to peer downward, brimming with anticipation. Gushi noticed AIC lost in thought and inquired, what? Did Yinlin speak to you? AIC turned and replied, Pururu, yes. It said it wants to come down. Gushi, no more burning? IC, Pururu. No, it's not burning anymore. Gushi mused that the situation felt like setting up a stage only for no performance to follow. Gushi, fine, let it come down then. We've wrapped up everything here. It's time we set sail. IC nodded in agreement. Just then, a fish leaped from the platform. Chapter 270. New purchase plan. A stunning figure plunged directly from the heights, splashing into the water with a loud crash. The sound of the splash was so overwhelming that it drowned out Gushi's next words. She swallowed her previous sentence, taking a few moments to regain her composure and speech. It just jumped down? So eager? IC responded vaguely. Pururu, yes. Gushi asked, is it all right? IC affirmed confidently. Pururu. It's a great sea beast. Its true form towers over the ice wall. Gushi recalled Yinlin's actions while climbing the wall earlier, but it seemed to show signs of acrophobia. Acrophobia, a new term. Gushi explained to AIC, it means feeling intense fear when looking down from a high place. Peruru. Impossible. AIC immediately refuted, unable to fathom a sea creature over 100 meters tall being afraid of heights. With another splash, water droplets flew everywhere. Gushi instinctively dodged and looked toward the center of the disturbance, where Yinlin had swum to the icy shore, preparing to come ashore. Sure, what you two discussing? Yinlin rested at the water's edge, lifting its head to observe the conversing pair. AIC evaded the question, gazing up at the sky. Gushi glanced at AIC before turning to Yinlin. I was asking if you'd get hurt jumping from the ice pillar. She paused, then broached the topic of acrophobia again. Additionally, I noticed you might be afraid of heights. Her words acted like a spark to gunpowder, igniting Yinlin's agitation, its scales flaring with flames. PSH, sure. How could that be? Who's afraid of heights? As a majestic flame fish beast, my true form dwarfs the ice pillar. Gushi watched calmly, noting how its speech grew more stammered and verbose with each word. Suddenly, AIC interjected, Peruru, I wasn't wrong, was I? The more the two sea beasts protested, the more Gushi suspected they were hiding something. AIC's apparent defense might be a cover for its own secrets. Seeing neither sea beast willing to confess, Gushi sighed wistfully, remarking that even grown fish have their little mysteries. Her half-jesting words left the aquatic creatures utterly exasperated. The trio returned to the ship, each resuming their busy routines. And so, the flame fish beast settled into life aboard the Future. As the Future expanded in size, the octopus, despite its 8 arms, found itself exceptionally occupied, compounded by the arrival of the flame-scaled beast, a creature disinclined to chores. Its daily care also fell upon the octopus. Although the fish often consumed standard feed, they clearly favored slightly processed versions, soaking it in fruit juice or lightly frying it for enhanced aroma, methods that delighted them. Consequently, the octopus's responsibilities multiplied. In response to its fervent appeals, Gushi resolved to purchase sea beasts capable of serving as laborers aboard the ship, utilizing the windfall acquired from the arena's sea ghost manager. Incidentally, while she initially requested only 10,000 gold coins, the earnings exceeded that sum, and the manager, being honest, handed over the entire amount, 14,500 coins in total. Despite this being a substantial fortune, Gushi inexplicably felt it was insufficient. Upon learning this, AC remarked that her perception was skewed by the vast wealth she had amassed on the ice island, a point Gushi conceded. After all, her current daily income hovered around 100 gold coins. At that rate, accumulating 10,000 would take 100 days. Having been in this world for less than that, it underscored the magnitude of the sum. Her dissatisfaction, she realized, was her own flaw. To procure the sea beasts, Gushi assembled the entire crew, including the 3 resident sea creatures, in the dining hall for a meeting, with a few chubby spheres joining in for the excitement. The octopus, serving as an all-around assistant and the longest tenured aboard, took on roles from helper to handyman, now acting as the meeting's receptionist. Gushi, with an air of formality, sat at the head of the table clutching a stack of papers, while the octopus attended to refreshments and snacks. The fish, being rather self-absorbed, refrained from whispering among themselves. Instead, the chubby spheres chattered softly in the background. Clearing her throat, Gushi announced, "Today marks the inaugural meeting of the Future. What I am about to say concerns everyone's vital interests, so listen carefully." Once silence fell, she continued, "Given the increasing ship duties, each crew member must shoulder their share of responsibilities. The octopus is overwhelmed with numerous and varied tasks, so I plan to attend an auction to acquire sea beasts to handle basic ship chores. These include sanitation, gardening, shark feeding, animal husbandry, and more. As the Future's area grows and we plan to expand cultivation spaces, it's impossible for the octopus to manage everything alone. Only by organizing the fish's duties will we free up time for training." Gushi elaborated her thoughts systematically before soliciting opinions. "Peruru. Buy more," AC interjected, recalling Gushi's words before the arena visit, and added, "Peruru, get some powerful ones." "Sure, I agree," chimed in Flamescale, who, being new and unfamiliar with ship affairs, had no objections. Little Fatty had a complaint, though. Lingling chimed in, attendant. We need an attendant. For our future visits, we must have a dedicated attendant. E added, and ideally, a skating coach. We absolutely need one. Gushi chose to overlook such indulgent demands for the moment. She had purchased labor, not servitude. Were it not for the scarcity of seaworthy beasts available for recruitment, she would have long scoured the seas for them. Additionally, at the upcoming auction, she intended to acquire a spatial domain, primarily terrestrial, specifically for cultivating food supplies. After stating this, Gushi fixed her gaze on the two colossal sea creatures. You both are well aware of your immense sizes. If you were to revert to your original forms, it would likely stir up towering waves. Should you desire a spatial domain, I can assist in procuring one for you. She then turned to the octopus, remarking, as for you, an aquatic spatial domain would suffice, and the ripples caused by your form wouldn't pose any concern. Upon hearing this, the two sea beasts reacted quite differently. AC responded with nonchalance, it's fine. I've grown accustomed to it. In contrast, Yinlin brimmed with excitement, exclaiming, really? Truly? I've yearned to transform back for ages. She raised a hand to curb his enthusiasm. Indeed, but you must furnish the funds for the spatial domain yourself, and inform me of the required dimensions. At her words, Yinlin's spirits deflated, while a faint, almost imperceptible smile played on AC's lips. She imparted a solemn lesson. Remember, there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Slumping onto the table, Yinlin mumbled dejectedly, but I have no money. She sighed lightly. Ah, that's not an insurmountable issue. No funds? Then seek out treasures. To illustrate, she specifically called upon AC, come, AC, show him how it's done. Chapter 271. Extorting fish feed, of course. Gushi's directive for step-by-step instruction was merely rhetorical. After all, how could a sea beast of Yinlin's SS-grade caliber possibly fail to unearth treasures? Once the meeting adjourned, everyone retired to rest. However, as beings endowed with spiritual energy, missing sleep or foregoing it entirely had little impact on their well-being. Having been enslaved by the deep-sea tribe in the past, Yinlin naturally harbored no fondness for the little chubby balls. Ironically, their curiosity knew no bounds, and they persistently swarmed around him. Thus, instead of heading to bed, the little balls emerged from their quarters and encircled Yinlin, their simple aim being to recruit another skating enthusiast. Through their efforts, the octopus had already joined their ranks, and AC showed keen interest, though his reluctance to mingle with the youngsters likely delayed his participation. Lingling, spotting Yinlin's emergence, signaled the others to encircle their target. For balls blocked his path from all directions, with Lingling orchestrating the maneuver from the side. Puffing out his chest proudly, Lingling looked up at Yinlin and declared, newcomer. Let me tell you, Yinlin's furious glare startled Lingling, causing him to instinctively retreat, followed by the other little balls stepping back as well. The imposing sea beast, taller and more powerful, unleashed a spiritual intimidation. Who's a newcomer? It's Yinlin. With a single utterance from Flame Scale, the chubby little orbs shrank back. Next tucked in helplessly. Compared to him, they were vastly outmatched in both psychic prowess and physical size, leaving them no choice but to cower like timid quails. Though they appeared cowardly now, they held firm belief that aboard Gushi's vessel, no harm would befall the deep-sea folk from any sea beast. Trembling, one of them mustered the courage to stammer while meeting Flame Scale's gaze, sorry, we just wanted you to play with us. Flame Scale looked down upon them, his towering form casting a shadow that engulfed them, the immense darkness seeming poised to devour them whole, sending shivers down their spines. Suddenly, the shadow shrank as Flame Scale crouched low. Play together? His tone was neutral, revealing nothing of his thoughts. The other chubby orbs crowded in, clustering together until their individual forms merged into a collective mass, bolstering their confidence and emboldening their spirits. Witnessing this, Flame Scale couldn't help but find it amusing. Faced with such innocence, he reined in some of his ferocity. Once crouched, his eyes were nearly level with the tops of the orbs' heads. Aren't you afraid I'll eat you? He teased, baring his teeth with a grin. Deep-sea folk are especially tasty, though the lowered height restored a sense of security. His words were utterly terrifying. Eager to cut off any more horrifying remarks, another orb blurted out, no, not tasty. Fish feed is much better. Flame Scale watched them with a half-smile, remaining silent. The orbs exchanged uneasy glances before reluctantly pulling out their stashes of fish feed from their pouches. One of them hesitated, clutching theirs tightly, thinking that if times got tough, they could share with the others later. Slowly and hesitantly, they presented the fish feed. The first orb nudged it forward, signaling to Flamescale, "This is better than deep-sea folk." For me, Flamescale's movements were casual, but his eyes never left the offering. He reached out, then paused, skepticism in his voice as he asked, "Willingly." In unison, the orbs swayed their bodies. Willingly, willingly. Good friends should share. No sooner had they spoken than the fish feed vanished without a trace, all collected by Flamescale. Satisfied with his haul, he cheerfully declared, "Then I won't hold back." With the bribe successfully given, it was only natural to humor the little orbs. Flamescale followed them to the ice rink. He had been here before with AC, but what was a fire-breathing sea beast doing on ice? It was a miracle the place didn't melt, if it could melt at all. The plump little creatures clearly sensed its fiery demeanor, so they slipped one by one onto the ice rink and began to dance gracefully, believing that performing was the best way to attract like-minded companions. Unfortunately, they overestimated their appeal. This method held irresistible charm for some fish, but for others, it was utterly dull. As fate would have it, Flamescale fell into the latter category. To its eyes, the chubby being's clumsy movements resembled a chaotic, grotesque spectacle. Without mincing words, it scorned them mercilessly. What kind of messy dance is that? It's hideous. Flamescale's harsh critique infuriated the little ones, who had been practicing for days. Though they were no match for this sea beast in strength, they had offered bribes. Why wasn't it praising them? Their fish feed had been wasted. From now on, they'd rather toss it to the sharks than give it to Flamescale. Ignoring their anger, Flamescale let out a strange, cackling laugh and swaggered away. In just one night, the tale of Flamescale swindling the chubby creatures out of their fish feed spread far and wide. Early the next morning, Gushi witnessed several of the little ones gathered around an octopus, pouring out their grievances, while AI-C cast a disdainful glare at Flamescale. And the octopus wore a helpless expression. At the center of the commotion, the very fish in question was gleefully unwrapping the fish feed and pouring it into its own mouth right before their eyes. The sight made Gushi want to bury her face in her hands. Ultimately, AI-C intervened, confiscating all the fish feed and compelling the octopus to prepare a grand feast from it, shared among the fish to resolve the farce. Although the affair was consensual in a way, Flamescale bore some responsibility at its core. Gushi, preoccupied with auction matters that day, had little time to keep an eye on Flamescale. She resolved to assign it tasks to prevent idleness, lest it stir up more trouble that would vex everyone. Flamescale, since you enjoy working with fire, from now on, you'll be responsible for smelting sea blue crystal or in sea blue crystals. All fire-related duties on the ship will fall to you. As for the specifics of learning the process, Gushi delegated that to the octopus, instructing it to teach Flamescale. The materials available for smelting weren't limited to sea blue crystal or alone. It was simply that the ship was in dire need of expansion materials, hence the continuous focus on that. Now, with a powerful, free source of flames at hand, it seemed unreasonable to continue on such a small scale. Ambitious as ever, Gushi suddenly recalled the need to construct a larger smelting room where all raw materials could be stored henceforth. As for the laborer, of course, it would reside within the smelting chamber to be on call for work at any time. Having quietly laid out her plans, Gushi beckoned Flamescale over. Behave yourself these next few days and avoid causing any trouble. I'm off to gather materials to build you a grand room. Flamescale was taken aback, never expecting such treatment. He exclaimed in surprise, "For me?" Gushi nodded solemnly, "Yes. Specially built just for you." She emphasized the word specially with particular weight. An unexpected surprise left Flamescale utterly bewildered. Even the ice shield fish had never received such treatment. Yet now it was bestowed upon it. Excitement and astonishment instantly filled its heart, making it completely forget the lesson she had once taught, that there is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Chapter 272, The Source of Gold Coins. A warning having successfully persuaded Flamescale, Gushi felt at ease as she headed to the invitation space for the auction. With the future ship's combat power rapidly increasing, she no longer worried about potential attacks while attending the event. After locating a suitable auction space, during her waiting period, aside from training and communicating with Sun Yiming, She also took care of tidying up the spatial flora as previously agreed. Although she had managed to evade this task once before, the greedy book, noting her improved attitude this time, magnanimously forgave her, especially upon learning she intended to purchase sea creatures capable of boarding and working on the ship. It generously recommended several species. Upon receiving the list of names, Gushi was taken aback, exclaiming, "We're being so generous this time?" The greedy book shimmered, replying, "It's not generosity. I merely provided you with names. Surely you don't think these sea creatures are easy to find, do you?" Gushi shook her head, fully aware of how unreasonable her demands were. Essentially, she sought deep-sea dwellers adapted to terrestrial life on board, a requirement that defied the natural habitat of most marine beings. The greedy book gloated slightly. "So you should be thanking me. Not only do you need sea creatures that can move, work, and live on the ship, but they must also possess a certain level of combat prowess. That's no simple feat." Instinctively nodding, Gushi blurted out without a hint of embarrassment, "Thank you." Her overly practiced gratitude left the greedy book momentarily flustered. Stumbling over its words, it said, "You do realize that most powerful sea creatures are unique individuals. So how many gold coins have you prepared?" Without concealment, Gushi replied, "Apart from the coins reserved for purchasing the planning space and for circulation, I have roughly 10,000 gold coins available." The greedy book remarked, 10,000? That's not insignificant. Gushi casted a skeptical glance. "I believe that from anyone else or a deep-sea dweller, but not from you." The greedy book flickered as if recalling the time it sold a piece of information for 1,000 gold coins. Well, wasn't that 1,000 gold coin information quite valuable? It stated with certainty rather than a question. On this point, Gushi couldn't argue. Although the information was merely a clue to repairing a key, it had led her to acquire an SS-ranked fish and tens of thousands of gold coins. In comparison, the initial cost was but a drop in the ocean. Having engaged in numerous transactions, despite the process, both parties were generally satisfied with the outcomes. A long-contemplated matter stirred within Gushi, and she felt the timing was opportune to broach it with a greedy book. She brought it up, saying, "I wish to gather information on deep-sea dwellers and sea creatures. Do you have any compiled volumes on the subject?" The Book of Greed paused its form, ceasing its ethereal drift. "Why do you ask?" Gushi replied matter-of-factly. "Is it not natural to probe potential adversaries and uncover latent allies?" After a brief silence, the book responded, "This matter is not easily handled." Gushi fixed her gaze upon it, retorting, "Difficult does not equate to impossible." Both fell into a prolonged stillness, until the book finally murmured, "The complexity of this affair is profound. Where should I begin?" Its words seemed directed at Gushi, yet more so at itself. After a moment's reflection, Gushi suggested, "Start with the enigmatic creature on the coin." From the instant she discovered the coin, Gushi had never relinquished her curiosity. What manner of currency could circulate universally among the deep-sea clans? For a coin to achieve such acceptance, it implied that its issuer, be it a singular entity or a collective, wielded absolute influence. The emblem adorning the coin symbolized this very power. But what were these beings? How did they compare to the SS-ranked sea beasts and deep-sea denizens? Burdened with unanswerable questions, she now pinned her hopes on the Book of Greed for enlightenment. After another extended pause, the book spoke slowly. "You know I am but a tome, my purpose to record and retrieve knowledge when needed. Yet, my archives on this coin are sparse." Gushi tilted her head inquisitively. "How many coins will it cost this time?" The book swayed in refusal. "This information comes without price." Understanding dawned upon her. Some truths transcend monetary value, and she listened as the book began to unravel the coin's tale. "These coins originate from the hadal depths of the ocean, all salvage from that abyssal realm. Though deep-sea clans and sea beasts dwell in the waters, they inhabit distinct layers of the sea. The coins are products of the hadal zone." It elaborated on the ocean stratification. The epipelagic zone from the surface to 200 meters. The mesopelagic from 200 to 1,000 meters. The bathopelagic from 1,000 to 6,000 meters. The abyssopelagic from 6,000 to 10,000 meters. And the hadopelagic beyond 10,000 meters. Typically, encounters with sea beasts and deep-sea clans occur around 1,000 meters. By 8,000 meters, their numbers dwindle, and islands grow scarcer with depth. Only SS-ranked or higher entities can venture into the hadal zone. Periodically, deep-sea clans descend to retrieve treasures, making coins from these depths ideal as currency. As for the strange creature depicted on the coin, it relates to a fragment of history uncovered by the deep-sea clans in the Hadal depths. Some speculate that a colossal, world-unifying force once existed, only to vanish for reasons unknown, leaving behind artifacts marked with this enigmatic symbol. Although she was profoundly astonished upon hearing this. She did not lose sight of her objective. Thus, why is it so difficult to obtain records of various deep-sea races and sea creatures? The Book of Greed interjected. Let me finish speaking. She obediently fell silent and continued to listen to its rambling explanation. Since there had once been a force that unified the ocean, it was natural that the deep-sea races, accustomed to living in communities, grew restless and sought to emulate a certain past entity. However, due to their inherent instincts, nearly every deep-sea race had its own adversaries and allies among the others. Given these relationships, they inevitably sought ways to eliminate their rivals. The method they devised was to study them. A single deep-sea race could only focus on a few opposing races, but with numerous allies. Those allies began to study as well, and soon the allies of allies joined in. Gradually, this network expanded, but enmity and friendship formed a cyclical chain. So, when the first link extended to a particular ring, they found themselves studied and eradicated by friends of friends several links down the line. What began as research for hostile purposes turned into a weapon for enemies to attack them, ultimately becoming a great absurdity. After listening to the Book of Greed, Gushi pondered thoughtfully and then inquired, so what? How was it resolved in the end? The Book of Greed replied gravely, in the end, all deep-sea races unanimously agreed to burn all the records. Gushi was speechless, but such a thing couldn't possibly be entirely forbidden. Surely some deep-sea races would continue their research. The Book of Greed responded earnestly. Indeed, and those who secretly conduct research are attacked by all other deep-sea races. It admonished with profound seriousness. Therefore, you must not engage in this, unless you wish to hasten your own demise. Chapter 273. The high-level auction she felt conflicted, as the matter had already been set in motion. To establish a foothold in this world, she needed more information. Yet now the Book of Greed warned that her actions might plunge everyone into an abyss. As her heart wavered with anxiety, the Book of Greed continued. I am unaware of what you have done previously, but I must caution you. Unless you are prepared to confront all deep-sea races, it is best not to act rashly. Gushi nodded, silently weighing the pros and cons in her mind. What if I only focus on the opposing deep-sea races? She asked again. The Book of Greed replied, as long as you maintain proper boundaries and limits, no deep-sea race will object. Gushi felt a sense of frustration. Recalling the many tactics she had employed on the water planet that might provoke hostility from this world's deep-sea races and sea creatures, she grew unusually concerned. Particularly regarding how to enhance communication with the deep-sea races, she realized she could no longer act based on her own assumptions. After a moment of reflection, Gushi shared her inner worries with the Book of Greed. To her surprise, it countered with a question. Do you believe that what the sea wraiths can accomplish, you can as well? The question left Gushi at a loss for words. She was well aware that the sea wraiths not only possessed unique abilities, but had also painstakingly built their current trade empire over a long period. What she, or rather the Mercurians, possessed were merely things that starkly contrasted with the oceanic world. Her aspiration was simply to select the appropriate elements and introduce them to the deep-sea clans. She reiterated, I am not that arrogant. I clearly understand our strengths. My ideal scenario is to forge alliances with friendly deep-sea clans, resist hostile ones, and find a sustainable way of life for us that would suffice. These words came from the depths of Gushi's heart, spoken with utter sincerity and not a hint of falsehood. Perhaps by voicing her inner thoughts, she felt a sense of relief, and with a clearer understanding of this world, she now brimmed with motivation. Similarly, her attitude further endeared her to the Book of Greed, which, within its capabilities, was willing to offer her additional conveniences. The Book of Greed proactively concluded the discussion and informed her, if you need information on sea beast auctions, I can select the relevant sessions for you. Upon hearing this, Gushi promptly expressed her gratitude. Despite the Book of Greed's assistance, she only obtained 2 pieces of information. The nearest auction was scheduled for the next day, while the subsequent one would be much later. This meant she would have to attend auctions on both today and tomorrow consecutively. before departing for the auction. The Book of Greed advised her that she might consider visiting the high-level auction, where she would likely find the sea beast she sought more easily. This reminder jogged her memory of the high-level auction invitation given to her earlier by the arena manager. She decided to check it out after returning from the current auction. After bidding farewell to the Book of Greed, Gushi joined the day's auction. Her target was a multi-land space spanning 1,000 square meters. Having completed her routine acquisitions, she hurried back to the future. She sorted the purchased items, deciding which to keep and which to send off, then retrieved the high-level auction invitation. Though the situation was still unclear, past experience told Gu she to bring ample gold coins. Wealth might not guarantee purchases, but it would surely earn the favor of the sea wraiths, potentially yielding valuable information. She withdrew 10,000 gold coins from the warehouse, storing them in a sharkskin pouch, and used her mental energy to activate the spatial portal within the high-level invitation. Fully prepared, she took a deep breath and stepped inside. Upon entry, a soft glow enveloped her, carrying a faint scent of the ocean. Gushi surveyed her surroundings, marveling inwardly at the vastness. It was several times larger than the space of a standard invitation. Looking down, she found herself treading on a path paved with countless shells and pearls, each emitting a gentle luminescence and producing a subtle musical chime with every step. Surrounding the space stood transparent crystal pillars, within which flowed an ethereal azure liquid. Upon closer inspection, one could discern the phantasmal silhouettes of unfamiliar marine creatures swimming inside. At the center of the space, a luminous blue screen clearly displayed the auction schedules. Though the decor had transformed, the functionality remained unchanged. Gushi, with practiced ease, retrieved the Book of Greed. As the book materialized in this unfamiliar setting, it sensed a familiar spiritual energy, inhaling a wisp of it before exclaiming in astonishment, "Gushi, it's you." It had not anticipated such a swift reunion. Indeed, quite soon, Gushi replied with composure, greeting it calmly. "I merely exchanged for an invitation." The Book of Greed murmured, "I hadn't imagined you would acquire a high-level invitation so quickly." Gushi responded, "I must thank you for your earlier reminder." The Book of Greed inquired, "Do you intend to seek a suitable sea beast now?" Gushi shook her head gently. "No, I plan to observe first." "Then you should bring your gold coins," the book advised. "By the way, the high-level invitation can bind 3 slots. It would be wise to bring attendants." 3 slots? Gushi expressed surprise. If that's the case, matters like attending high-level auctions could be delegated to AC in the future. But why is it advisable to bring them? She wondered, perplexed. The Book of Greed explained, because it's perilous. Ordinary auctions are safeguarded by sea phantoms. But high-level auctions are venues favored by advanced deep-sea clans for their treasures. In the event of any mishap, the assistance from sea phantoms is limited. Upon hearing this, Gushi drew a sharp breath. Then, "No one dares to steal?" The words slipped out before she could reconsider, and she immediately regretted her thoughtless remark. After all, who would dare? All bidders desire the items, and anyone attempting theft would face collective retaliation. Never mind, I'll see for myself by attending one. Thank you for the warning. Gushi concluded. Her original intent had merely been to exchange greetings, not to delve deeper. After reserving a spot for the nearest auction, she bid farewell to the Book of Greed and turned to leave the space. Since the new invitation could accommodate additional teleportation slots, she naturally decided to enlist AC as a bodyguard. She had already noted that high-level auctions were far less frequent than ordinary ones, while the latter occurred 56 times daily. High-level ones were held only once every 5 to 15 days. Fortune had favored her this time, as the next auction was scheduled for that very evening. Missing this opportunity would mean a long wait. Checking the time, she saw it was nearly noon, leaving several hours until evening. Before completing her agenda, she could first seek out AC. Locating AC proved effortless. When Gushi found him, he had crafted an ice recliner for himself and was lying beside a skating rink. Fishing. Nearby, a few cheerful, plump spheres frolicked, infusing the scene with vibrant life. Approaching AC, Gushi briefly outlined the situation. Upon hearing about the high-level auction, he assumed it was similar to their previous visit to the arena and gave a slight nod of acknowledgement. Chapter 274. The High-Level Auction 2, as dusk settled. The crew finished their evening meal, and Gushi, taking AIC by the hand, vanished from the ship. Before departing, she reminded Yen Lin to safeguard the vessel. Upon stepping into the advanced dimensional space, Gushi immediately sensed subtle shifts within the environment. It seemed as though a concealed mechanism had been activated, releasing an imperceptible ripple that permeated the air. AIC, too, perceived the disturbance. Seeing Gushi remain motionless, he paused in bewilderment. Gradually, the surrounding pillars began to emit faint, pulsating glows, which converged toward AIC like conscious entities. Tiny, star-like specks descended slowly, encircling him in a swirling dance that accelerated into a luminous ring. Bathed in an enigmatic azure light, the ring extended delicate tendrils of radiance, probing the essence and tier of AIC's spiritual energy. Simultaneously, intricate patterns emerged on the ground, spreading outward from AIC's position. Veins of pale blue energy flowed like gentle streams, swiftly encircling his feet as if sketching the contours of his psychic prowess. The walls of the space adorned themselves with mystical symbols, flickering and shifting in an ethereal glow. AIC stood in serene composure, rhythmically unveiling fragments of his spiritual rank. His energy transformed into icy blue rays, merging seamlessly with the surrounding luminescence. As the light dissipated, Gushi urgently inquired, "How did it go?" "Paruru. It appears to be a process of recording and assessing spiritual levels," came the response. Frowning with displeasure, Gushi remarked, "It wasn't like this during the last arena event." "Paruru, there's a distinction. The previous evaluation was straightforward and easily bypassed. So this time?" "Paruru. Naturally, I remain at SS tier." AIC paused before sharing his conjecture. "Paruru. Had I exerted spiritual force beyond the SS tier, the space would likely have expelled me." Gushi expressed astonishment. "You? Expelled? Does high yielding possess such capability?" "Paruru. Certainly not. But this dimension has the option to self-destruct." A chill ran through Gushi's heart at the thought. "If that were the case, wouldn't I be trapped here?" "Paruru. Not with me here. At worst, you'd lose a high-level invitation pass, which can be reclaimed from high yielding later." Observing his nonchalant attitude, Gushi resolved to instill in him the value of precious items, ensuring he no longer treated them as disposable trash. The registration and appraisal left Gushi with lingering trepidation, but just then, a notification signaled the auction's commencement. Hastily, she deposited gold coins into her Haishin card and guided AIC onto the teleportation platform. A brilliant light enveloped them, whisking the pair away into the next phase. In the next moment, their figures vanished from the spot, shifting toward the auction venue. When a human and her sea beast reappeared, they found themselves in another space, a transitional area for auction participants. Gushi glanced around and noted its resemblance to the VIP reception room. Spotting the front desk manned by a Sea Wraith attendant, she approached swiftly. The Sea Wraith attendant quickly assessed her as a new face. Invitations to the high-level auction were limited, and every attendant memorized each guest's details. Those who received such invitations were invariably affluent deep-sea clans, each a significant client to the Sea Wraiths. Recently, the latest recipient was rumored to be from a newly emerged deep-sea race, known as the deep-sea humans. This particular guest was extraordinary, having nearly swept every recent auction and showcased her sea beast prowess in the arena. Though she had only appeared once, she deployed an SS-ranked sea beast and won another in combat. While her personal strength was modest, possessing 2 SS-ranked sea beasts made her a formidable force, one that other deep-sea clans dared not provoke lightly. The attendant's mind raced through Gushi's spending records, especially delighted by her earlier sweep of standard auction that very morning. It fawned obsequiously, exceedingly magnificent, and unparalleled honored guest. Welcome to the high-level auction. Accustomed to such flattery, Gushi had no patience for empty praise and cut it off abruptly. Do you have any essential items for the auction? The attendant's eyes seemed to sparkle at the prospect of a sale, thrilled by the interruption if it meant more purchases. Yes. Exceedingly magnificent and unparalleled honored guest. What would you like? Though it posed the question, it astutely presented a catalog and began explaining. The high-level auction has few rules, nothing particularly noteworthy, but all distinguished guests favor this item. The attendant indicated a peculiar mask crafted from starlight crystal. It recorded the wearer's psychic energy to form a unique visage. Priced at a mere 100 gold coins. Gushi waited for further details, but after a few breaths, it fell silent. Is that all? She inquired. The attendant replied. That's it. Finished. Gushi was incredulous, having assumed the mask held some special attribute. According to the description, it seemed little more than a custom accessory, aesthetically pleasing but otherwise useless. Suddenly, AIC interjected, Starlight Crystal can block psychic energy. If the mask is made from it, it should possess that property. Is that true? Gushi turned back to query the Sea Wraith attendant after hearing AIC's words. The Sea Wraith receptionist spun its coiled eyes in confusion, equally baffled and unfamiliar with the matter. It only knew that guests often purchased it, but beyond that, it remained clueless. Noticing its near-malfunctioning state, Gushi decided not to press further. Initially, she had assumed it was merely decorative, but if it could shield against psychic energies, it was truly valuable. Wearing it would conceal her thoughts, obscure her features, and avoid drawing undue attention. A perfect trifecta. Give me 2. Gushi swiftly handed over her Sea Trust card. After deducting 200 gold coins, the receptionist retrieved 2 masks. Gushi accepted them, passed one to AIC, and examined hers closely. The mask boasted an elegant, oval silhouette, with subtle crescent-shaped ridges resembling a new moon in the dark night, exuding an aura of mystery. It lacked eye openings, adorned instead with intricate patterns, making it resemble a piece of art more than a mere disguise. After her inspection, Gushi leaned in and whispered to AIC, how peculiar this mask is. It might suit our forms, but what about those bizarre deep-sea creatures? How would they wear it? AIC draped the mask over his head with a playful rustle. Let's find out once we're inside. He didn't mention that he, too, was intensely curious. Chapter 275. The Grand Auction 3. As the auction time approached, the Sea Wraith receptionist opened the door to the exclusive event. Gushi and AIC followed, stepping through a spatial portal into an expansive, open area. Gushi paused to survey the surroundings. Unlike the standard auction booths, this space featured large, iridescent shells glowing with a pearlescent sheen, their edges embellished with delicate carvings. Varying in size, these shells floated like scattered islands in an artful arrangement. From within, bidders had an unobstructed view of the auction stage below and could observe others in neighboring shells. Gushi's shell, though not the smallest, ranked among the lesser ones. Her gaze fixed on a nearby shell towering about 8 meters high, where 2 beings stood and sat, the seated one masked, the other fully visible, starkly highlighting their hierarchical disparity. Worried that Gushi might resent the size discrepancies, the Sea Wraith receptionist reassured her, most esteemed and unparalleled guest, these shells are tailored to the dimensions of deep-sea denizens. Please have no concerns. Gushi nodded in comprehension. I understand, but since they hover in the air, can they be moved freely? The receptionist replied, indeed, though they follow predetermined paths to avoid collisions. Gushi exclaimed in surprise, could they be alive? Gushi's inquiry was met with an affirmative response from the Sea Wraith attendant, followed by an explanation. Their fixed routes could intersect, and during the auction, they would shift positions at any moment. Hearing this, Gushi was slightly taken aback. She glanced at AIC, who nodded back at her, the two engaging in a silent exchange through psychic energy. AIC, if we add masks that block psychic energy, this movement method could enhance our chances of evading pursuit by other deep-sea races, right? Peru, it seems so. If all the shells are in motion, no single deep-sea being in one shell could halt them all. While this tactic is ineffective against sea creatures of AIC's psychic caliber, it still imposes certain limitations on those at the SS level. After a brief private discussion between the human and the beast, the deep-sea beings in the floating shells gradually assembled. Gushi surveyed them one by one, noting that each was accompanied by companions, and even when they noticed her gaze, they remained utterly indifferent and unmoved. Peru. Almost all are SS level, with a few at S level, AIC suddenly remarked. Gushi, are the attendants all sea creatures? I see. Pururu. No. Some are various types of deep-sea races. Gushi nodded, gaining a general understanding of the auction hall's dynamics. At the very least, it revealed hierarchical distinctions among the deep-sea races. Though the assembly consisted solely of S and SS levels, she felt no insecurity as an A-level individual, having slain numerous S-level sea beasts and possessing ample confidence in such settings. However, her self-assurance did not mean all deep-sea beings were unconcerned. Most disregarded her scrutiny with indifference. But one newcomer stood out. It projected psychic energy toward Gushi brimming with overt hostility. AIC, detecting the animosity, prepared to freeze the psychic assault. But Gushi raised a hand to stop him. Icy, litit be. Peruru. She shook her head. Unless they strike first, we shall not act. The hostility noticed by Gushi and AIC did not escape the sea wraith attendant either. Supremely unparalleled and incomparable honored guest, do not worry. Such incidents are commonplace. Gushi cast a meaningful glance nearby. I understand, all bark and no bite. Though the sea wraith attendant did not grasp the phrase's meaning. It felt the honored guest's words were remarkably apparent. The newcomer across from them was a merman, humanity's greatest adversary. Upon seeing it, Gushi sighed inwardly, thinking how fate brings enemies together, as she seemed to encounter them everywhere. The reason for their mere glaring was easily understood. The merman was only S-level. Perhaps it was their very weakness that led them to prey upon seemingly weaker humans. Now, faced with a gathering of SS-level deep-sea beings, they dared not overstep any boundaries. Beams of light shimmered ethereally within the auction hall, like mysterious phosphorescence in the deep sea, casting the entire space into a dreamlike illusion. At the very center, a circular auction platform slowly ascended. Surrounding it, shells emanated a gentle, lustrous glow and began to drift in a slow, deliberate dance. It begins, announced the sea wraith attendant. Gushi focused her attention downward. Soon, she observed the sea wraith auctioneer floating onto the stage. Draped in a magnificent black robe adorned with intricate patterns of golden coin-like creatures that swayed with its movements. In its hand, it held a crystal-clear gavel, and under the luminous beams, it offered a few brief, courteous words. The first auction item was carried up by two sea wraith servants, an ancient sea beast skull, embedded with several fist-sized luminous pearls whose radiance enveloped the entire platform. A mere ornament, Gushi concluded after a single glance. Such objects had never held her interest, yet she meticulously noted the details for future reference. Several items followed, all decorative artifacts salvaged from the deep, lulling Gushi into a state of drowsiness. The sea wraith attendant, noticing her apparent disinterest, pondered what might capture her fancy. Just then, the auctioneer's voice resonated through the hall, steady and magnetic like the deep ocean currents, jolting Gushi awake. This mermaid possesses S-grade spiritual power, starting bid 5,000 gold coins. Minimum increment of 100 coins. Gushi fixed her gaze and confirmed its resemblance to a legendary creature from Mercury. Without hesitation, she instructed the sea wraith attendant to bid 100 coins. Her offer drew the collective attention of the deep-sea denizens. 200 coins. Came a counterbid from a merman clan shell. Gushi frowned slightly. I see marked. It's the merman clan. Gushi inquired, do they know it's us bidding? AIC replied, they're only S-grade. They cannot pinpoint our location. Soon, another bid emerged. 300 coins. From a different shell. Gushi had originally planned to spend 10,000 gold coins on 3 suitable sea beasts. But with this single item consuming the majority of her budget, she hesitated to continue. The merman shell quickly countered 400 coins. The rapid increments indicated the opponent's remaining strength, prompting Gushi to temporarily withdraw and observe the final price. After 2 more rounds, the bid reached 800 gold coins. The merman's next bid was hesitant. 900 coins. It finally declared. 900 once. 900 twice. The merman grinned beneath its mask, having staked all its savings, determined to secure the prize. At that moment, another bid echoed through the hall. 6,000 coins. Chapter 276. The High-Level Auction. 4. The merman trembled with rage. Yet due to the shell's shifting trajectory and the mask's psychic barrier, he remained oblivious to the identity of his bidding rival. Merely an S-class being, he required another guardian for his safety. Having finally found an affordable S-class sea creature within his means, he was thwarted by the sudden interference of a deep-sea clan member. But auctions abide by their rules. Even as fury consumed him, the higher bid prevailed, leaving him to stew in his own frustration. His assigned sea specter attendant observed from the sidelines, anticipating a renewed offer, but none came for a long while. The sea specter deduced that the merman had likely been forced to concede, a common occurrence in such gatherings. Though slightly disappointed, it held no prejudice. 6,000 once. The auctioneer's psychic voice resonated throughout the space. 6,000 twice. The Sea Spectre's tone was weighty and commanding, as if urging any interested parties to act swiftly. 6,000. Thrice. Sold. With a resounding strike of the gavel, the matter was settled. Within the entire venue, aside from Gu Shi's personal Sea Spectre attendant, no deep-sea denizen was aware that she had secured the mermaid sea creature. Having successfully acquired the mermaid, Gu Shi felt a surge of satisfaction. Although the price exceeded her initial expectations, gaining an additional S-class combatant and labor made the expenditure worthwhile. Following the mermaid, the auction shifted to materials and decorative items, none of which piqued her interest. She had no need for ornaments nor the specific resources offered, leaving her largely disengaged. Noticing her profound boredom, her Sea Spectre attendant grew curious and ventured, "Oh, supremely unparalleled esteemed guest, you invested such a substantial sum for that fish?" Gu Shi tilted her head and countered, "Is it not worth it?" The attendant refrained from passing judgment on value, but opted to share insights to foster goodwill. It explained that in high-level auctions, the minimum bid started at 5,000 gold coins, and this particular sea creature was notably small. Among sea beasts, size often correlates with psychic strength. Larger forms typically denote greater power. Despite variations among species, the mermaid below hardly appeared S-class. After all, S-class sea creatures generally lack the ability to alter their size. Such control, aside from innate talents like those of octopuses, is usually attained only at the SS tier. Thus, a diminutive S-class specimen is often deemed inferior. Gu Shi grasped the attendant's implication. It believed the mermaid wasn't worth 6,000 gold coins. She respected the diverse standards of the deep-sea folk, but posed a curious question in return. Does everyone prefer larger ones? The Sea Spectre glimmered brightly and affirmed, "Indeed, that is the case, for most deep-sea beings are considerably smaller than the sea creatures themselves. By merely purchasing a colossal sea beast, one could reside upon it indefinitely." Unbidden, Gu Shi recalled the deep-sea colossus turtle. It struck her that despite being an SSS-rank deep-sea creature, it could host an entire merfolk tribe on its back. What a sheer act of foolish generosity. Gu Shi silently mocked the notion before replying with detached indifference. "I prefer smaller ones. My vessel cannot accommodate such a massive sea beast." Upon hearing that she possessed a ship, the spectral sea attendant's interest ignited instantly. "Oh, supremely incomparable and unparalleled esteemed guest. You actually own a ship?" Its form began to glow with a crimson light, emitting heart-shaped bubbles. Its joy overflowing so palpably that Gu Shi was taken aback. "Don't you all have ships as well?" she inquired. The spectral sea attendant sighed, a hint of envy lacing its tone. "Ships are exceedingly expensive. Only the truly affluent can afford their own," reflecting on the materials and effort required for shipbuilding. Gu Shi nodded unconsciously. As the conversation unfolded, Gu Shi found the spectral sea attendant quite agreeable and decided to probe further about vessels. "You seem quite fond of ships. Do you know what material is best for the propulsion system?" "That's my specialty. The finest material is undoubtedly the abyssal crystal," the attendant revealed mysteriously. "Abyssal crystal?" Gu Shi repeated. "Exactly. It's the highest grade fuel source. Aside from its cost, it has no flaws," the attendant exclaimed excitedly. Gu Shi's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "And what are its advantages?" "The primary benefits are its incredible speed and exceptional durability," the attendant explained, pointing toward her finger. "A piece the size of your finger could power a warship for 30 days and nights." Gu Shi's jaw dropped in astonishment. She then held up her own finger, gesturing to the attendant. "For a piece this big, how many gold coins would it cost?" 100 gold coins. Though, the larger the abyssal crystal, the higher its value, the attendant clarified. Gu Shi immediately closed her mouth, thinking it wasn't as expensive as she'd imagined. She had a considerable stock of abyssal crystals herself, and using them for fuel wouldn't be extravagant. The only consideration was their source. Observing her swift return to composure, the spectral sea attendant was momentarily perplexed. "Supremely incomparable and unparalleled esteemed guest. Are you not satisfied?" Gu Shi parted her lips slightly, then closed them before responding. "It's just a bit unexpected. Thank you. Young sir, the Sea Spectres. I've decided to use it as my propulsion fuel." "Young sir?" The unfamiliar address caused the spectral sea attendant to freeze in confusion. Ignoring the attendant's bewilderment, Gu Shi turned to converse with AIC. "AIC, are you acquainted with mermaids?" Pulilu has encountered one before. Their tails can transform into legs. Their hair is deep blue and very long, and they sing beautifully with enchanting voices. Aren't you forgetting something? They're also very beautiful. Puyula thinks that's not important. How can it not be important? It's quite significant, unless you prefer the merfolk type. Upon hearing Gushi's words, AIC's mind involuntarily conjured images of two creatures, and the comparison sent a shiver through his entire body. Right? Gushi's tone lifted slightly, as if savoring a small triumph. Soon after, the auction concluded. Gushi paid with her Haishin card and escorted the purchased mermaid back to the ship. During the return journey, she bantered with AIC, remarking on the generosity of high-end auctions. She had acquired a mermaid and received a complimentary 50 square meter mobile space as a bonus. Though the space was compact and of limited utility, it served as a suitable chamber for the mermaid. After completing the arrangements, deep night had fallen. Gushi refrained from rousing the slumbering mermaid, instead leaving an ample supply of fish feed. Maritime log, Day 90. Gushi and the aquatic companions awoke, gathering with shared curiosity about the newcomer from the previous night. Chapter 277. Ariel, the skeletal deep-sea tribe Gushi, accompanied by a host of marine creatures, assembled before the mobile space. Are we all prepared? Gushi inquired. Phew. Yes. Yes, let's head in quickly. Yinlin urged eagerly, keen to glimpse the new sea dweller. The octopus entwined itself around Gushi's leg, prodding her to unveil the space. Anxious to inspect the latest addition to their crew, Gushi channeled her psychic energy to unlock the mobile space, stepping in first with the others trailing behind. Though the area was modest, it accommodated the small school comfortably, and they clustered around the mermaid. Yinlin darted ahead, crouching to gently poke the mermaid's form, while sharp eyes noted the diminished fish feed nearby. Phew, it must have awakened hungry, it observed. Gushi nodded, recalling the binding notification heard in the night. Chirp, chirp. Why hasn't it stirred yet? It likely needs more rest. Let's not disturb it, Gushi advised, halting Xiao Ponchio's approach mid-motion. All watched in silent anticipation, eyes fixed on the mermaid. The mermaid's last memory lingered on consuming the fish feed, recalling only the purchase before drifting into oblivion. In a daze, it fluttered its eyelids open, mind replaying the final moments. Hazily, it perceived numerous sea beasts, perhaps even deep-sea tribesfolk. Startled into full alertness, it leaped with its tail, instinctively seeking refuge in the water, oblivious that its observers were fellow fish with no place to hide. Witnessing its terror, Gushi enlisted AIC's aid to establish a psychic link. Who are you? The mermaid demanded, gaze wary as it scanned the group before settling on Gushi. The slave bond revealed her as the purchaser, while the fish feed fostered an instinctive affinity. Phew, you're S-rank, yet so timid? Yinlin remarked disdainfully, adding, quite like pearl fish. Chirp, chirp. I mean no harm. The octopus crept forward, its mouth still displaying itself. As for the chubby little orbs, they remained at a distance, careful not to disturb it. Yet their eyes were fixed on the mermaid's shimmering scales. The mermaid remained silent, her gaze locked intently on Gushi, filled with inner turmoil. Gushi gently patted Yinlin and spoke to the mermaid. Do not fear. None of them will harm you. From now on, you will live with us. The mermaid nodded timidly, then glanced at the chubby orbs. It was inevitable, having just escaped the clutches of the deep-sea tribe, that she would instinctively dread them. They are guests on the ship, you need not worry. Reassured by Gushi's words, the mermaid relaxed considerably. She stretched her body and swam toward the edge of Gushi's resting space. Gushi beckoned to her, inquiring about her name. Of course, she had none, so Gushi named her Ariel. Ariel possessed a cascade of flaming, radiant pink hair that flowed smoothly into the water, swaying gently as she lifted her head, exuding a captivating brilliance. Her lower body featured a long, elegant tail adorned with pristine white scales arranged in perfect order, each one shimmering with a soft, starlit glow that twinkled along the fin. Encouraged by Gushi, her tail began to transform. The edges gradually fused and reshaped, the once broad tail contracting and slowly dividing into two long, slender legs. She rose cautiously, her heart brimming with trepidation. Step by step, she moved forward, with Gushi offering words of encouragement beside her. Yes, it has been a while since you last walked. A bit more practice, and it will feel natural. Ariel nodded happily, offering a shy smile. Phew, I have seen enough. I am heading out, declared Yinlin, whose fleeting fascination vanished as quickly as it had come. Upon realizing this sea creature was not formidable, he lost most of his interest. Now, watching her practice walking, he lost all remaining curiosity. Noticing his impatience, Gushi dismissed him from space. Yinlin swayed out, but within moments, he returned, appearing disoriented. Gushi, observing his bewildered state, inquired, "What is wrong? Why'd you come back?" "Shill. There's a red light glowing outside." Gushi froze momentarily, finding the statement somewhat perplexing. After a few seconds, it dawned on her. It was the glow of the crimson gaze. With the ship's powerful fish now inside the space and no strong presence guarding the exterior, attracting hostility was only natural. She had been so long without an active assault that she had nearly forgotten such occurrences. "There is an enemy attack. Go out and guard while we prepare to join you," Gushi commanded methodically. Yinlin, AC, and the octopus promptly exited the space, while the chubby orbs cast lingering, reluctant glances at the mermaid before returning to the ship. Gushi removed the mermaid's control ring, instructing her to remain and practice walking until accustomed, then turned and departed the space herself. The moment she emerged, a blinding crimson light pulsed incessantly overhead. Gushi swiftly ascended to the third floor viewing platform, striding toward AIC and Yinlin. The sea wind howled past, carrying a briny tang. The ocean's surface lay unervingly calm, its placid waters offering no visible hint of an impending threat, yet the ominous glow above served as undeniable proof of danger. "What's happening? How could there be an enemy assault here?" Gushi remarked as she extended her psychic senses, casually scanning the distant sea. Suddenly, her eyes widened, and her body stiffened slightly. What she hadn't noticed before now sent a chill down her spine. Could the enemies be skeletal sea beasts? In the far-off waters, a peculiar horde was advancing slowly. These entities were skeletons, their frames seemingly steeped in pitch-black tar, oozing a suspicious dark fluid. Though their forms varied drastically in shape and size, they shared one common trait. Their hollow eye sockets flickered with an eerie azure flame. Moreover, their protruding bones were as sharp as blades, capable of slicing through even massive boulders with ease. Wait, something was amiss. Some of those bones didn't resemble those of sea creatures. Or were they? Gurgle, gurgle. Those aren't sea beasts. They're likely deep-sea tribes, AIC declared gravely, her gaze fixed on the distance as she addressed Gushi's confusion. Abruptly, a living sea creature from the far sea approached the skeletons, unleashing its own psychic energy in an attempt to halt their advance. Yet, the skeletal figures pressed forward undeterred, the azure flames in their eye sockets blazing more intensely. "That sea creature is in peril," Gushi cried out, as the distance between them closed. The skeletons initiated the assault. When the skeletal deep-sea tribes leaped high, its razor-sharp finger bones tracing a frigid arc through the air as it aimed for the sea creature's eye. The creature writhed in terror, trying to evade. But the skeleton's speed was overwhelming. Its claws still managed to slash the creature's eyelid. Another skeletal being charged at a colossal sea creature, its jawbone bristling with jagged teeth, and sank them viciously into the creature's flank. Scales tore away effortlessly, and blood sprayed forth instantly. The skeleton's teeth clamped down relentlessly on flesh and hide, refusing to release despite the creature's frantic struggles, while the azure flames in its sockets flickered wildly. The ensuing scene was too gruesome for Gushi to bear. She instinctively shut her eyes. Just as she assumed the skeletons would deliver the final blow, AIC suddenly sprang into action. Chapter 278. Chaotic bones stew far out in the sea. An invisible force abruptly enveloped the area. AIC's formidable psychic energy spread like a vast, imperceptible net, silently and swiftly extending toward that stretch of water. A frigid aura surged from the ocean's depths, rapidly diffusing through the seawater. Ice crystals coalesced, grew, intertwined, and merged, freezing the tumultuous waves in midair as if time itself had halted. The droplets scattered into the air splashed onto the ice with crisp, rhythmic collisions. The abrupt environmental shift caught the horde of skeletons off guard, their once swift and aggressive movements instantly turning sluggish. Their sharp exoskeletons, which had once sliced through the air with chilling gleams, now swung slowly like rusted machinery. The eerie blue flames flickering within their hollow eye sockets grew less intense, as if subdued by the frigid surface's strange vitality. Suddenly, a burst of flame from Yinlin struck the attacking skeleton, its fierce blaze pushing the creature back a considerable distance. The injured sea beast was saved. Purple-blue flames engulfed the skeleton, which writhed in agony, emitting spine-chilling creaks. Yet, the skeleton proved ruthlessly decisive. Without hesitation, it raised its bone blade and severed the severely burned arm. The severed limb clattered onto the ice with a sharp ring, but Yinlin's fire persisted, quickly reducing it to ashes. Before anyone could react, an astonishing scene unfolded. From the stump of the skeleton's arm, faint threads of grayish-green light shimmered, gathering into ethereal specks. Rapidly, new bone began to regenerate at a visible pace, first as sharp, tiny protrusions, then elongating and thickening swiftly into a complete arm indistinguishable from the original. From the lookout platform, Gushi watched in wide-eyed disbelief, exclaiming, "How is this possible? Its bones can heal so quickly." "I see. Igualitaque nabak, murmured. These bones defy high-level psychic pressure and even regenerate without consuming life energy. Such a phenomenon is rare." Yinlin, unfazed, snorted, "It may look impressive, but it can't withstand fire. I'll just incinerate it all." Inspired by their comrades' regeneration, the frozen, sluggish, deep-sea skeletons struggled to break free from the icy constraints, their hollow eyes blazing with renewed intensity as they attempted to attack the stunned sea beast once more. But was AIC's ice ordinary? As long as she maintained her psychic hold, no amount of struggle could free them. Amid the chaos, the dazed sea beast finally snapped out of its stupor. With the sudden aid of a larger sea creature, it seized the moment to escape, slipping away right under the watchful eyes of Gushi, AIC, and Yinlin. With their prey gone, the skeleton's assault fell into disarray. Though they retained their aggressive stances, the blue flames in their eye sockets dimmed noticeably. "Take this," Yinlin declared, preparing to unleash another fiery assault on the frozen skeletons. "Yinlin, wait." Gushi urgently called out to stop her. Yinlin gazed at Gushi with a bewildered expression, emitting a soft, "Why stop me? Shouldn't we burn them?" Gushi furrowed her brow and explained, "Have you forgotten? Your flames can't melt AC's ice. Some of those skeletons are frozen by AC. If you don't incinerate them completely, they'll regenerate their bones using the frozen parts. Wouldn't that be a waste of effort?" Upon hearing this, Yinlin scratched its head, suddenly recalling the formidable presence of AC blocking its path. Its abilities could handle the skeletons, but not AC's ice. At this realization, a cloud of worry crossed its face. "I totally forgot," it muttered. Then AC spoke up with a gentle bubbling sound. "I can construct ice walls from a distance to isolate these skeletons, then dissolve the ice within. When that's done, we'll make bone soup." Yinlin exclaimed excitedly. Gushi watched the two sea creatures discussing how to cook in the middle of the ocean with a sense of helplessness. Though the plan was sound, she couldn't shake an odd feeling about it. Seeing no objection from Gushi, AC extended its psychic energy, manipulating the distant ice surface. Dozens of meters high ice walls plunged into the sea, rising above the waves. They first enclosed an area, trapping the skeletons inside, then formed a base, effectively placing them in a giant pot. With the pot ready, the next step was to melt the ice within. AC guided its psychic power, causing the icy surface inside to collapse dramatically. The previously frozen skeleton deep-sea creatures gradually regained mobility, shaking their heads as eerie blue flames reignited fiercely in their eye sockets, emitting furious roars. "Bubble, bubble, it's done," AC announced. "Puffed. These bones still know how to move." Yinlin grinned, swiftly channeling its psychic energy to ignite flames within the ice pot. The aquatic flames darted through the water with astonishing speed, as if they were lighting not water, but gasoline. Blue-purple fire surged toward the skeletons, rapidly spreading and enveloping them. The skeletons writhed in the flames, the dark fluid coating their bones, igniting instantly upon contact. Their sharp bones began to glow red under the intense heat. In moments, their struggles weakened, their skeletal frames gradually turning to ash in the fire, the eerie blue flames in their eyes slowly extinguishing. Ultimately, Yinlin's flames eradicated the skeleton deep-sea creatures completely, leaving only scattered black remnants floating on the sea surface. Yinlin's aquatic flames could extinguish on their own or be controlled by its psychic energy. Sadly, with no bones left, what soup could there be to simmer? AC wasn't interested in playing along. Bubble, bubble, I'm dismantling the walls now. Put out the fire quickly. Uft. These bones are too fragile to burn. Yinlin lamented, still craving more action. But that lingering desire faded under AC's brief, dismissive glance. Extinguishing the flames and dismantling the walls took only a few breaths. Once they had finished their tasks, Gushi was left with nothing but a deep sense of reflection. This skeleton bore striking resemblances to the previous viral sea beasts, yet she had dispatched her own aquatic creatures so swiftly that the peril vanished before she could study it. Alas, what had we done? Having honed her skills last time, she couldn't possibly dampen the fish's enthusiasm now. Perhaps next time, she would take the stage herself. However, she had gathered scant information on her own and had to seek clues in the regional chat channel. Chapter 279 News. Favor declined. Perhaps she had grown too accustomed to tranquility, nearly forgetting how rapidly circumstances shifted during disasters. Though this calamity had persisted longer with differing patterns, its severity only intensified as time wore on. She had already endured 2 major assaults, one from zombie sea beasts and the other from the skeletal deep-sea tribe. Wondering about others' fates, she turned her attention to the regional situation. The latest survival statistics struck her with a jolt. 87. 654 people remained in a district that once held 100,000. Those who had endured this long surely possessed both luck and strength, yet so many had perished. This time, Gushi didn't skim through the content hastily, but perused it slowly. District 2333, Regional Chat Group, 87, 654 100, 000. Oh my god. What's happening? Those virus-infected sea beasts or deep-sea tribes seem to have mutated. They're nearly indestructible. I'm on the verge of despair. My area's waters are heavily contaminated. The fortunate part is that sea beasts and deep-sea tribes are scarce, but the downside is that almost all fish have vanished. Worse yet, this virus is starting to affect humans in its later stages. I've noticed that too. It triggers mental frenzy. Higher mental strength can resist it temporarily. So I've been frantically leveling up my psychic abilities. Same here. The ocean is forcing me to become self-reliant and persevere through hardship. I'm barely managing myself. People of Earth, I hope you're praying for me. I've encountered infected sea beasts that behave like zombies. Zombie sea beasts. Gushi's eyes locked onto this message. Suspecting the sender might be nearby, she immediately inquired. Gushi, I've faced zombie sea beasts too. Is the area where you encountered them close to the sea's blue glow region? The response came swiftly. Wow, it's Sister She. I wish I could see the blue glow. That would mean I'm near you. Gushi didn't reply, but pondered the information. Gushi, it seems zombie sea beasts aren't unique to any particular sea zone. I think so as well. I've seen them here too, about a dozen. I was clever enough to upgrade to a ship and escaped by speeding away. By the way, Sister She, you're still using a boat, right? Why not upgrade? Gushi couldn't help but smile faintly upon hearing that her construction ranking was nearly overtaken. She wished to accelerate progress, yet material constraints held her back. Upon checking the rankings, she found herself still leading with 12,453 points, while the runner-up trailed at 10,345, a comfortable margin. She surmised that her spatial plugins had significantly boosted her score, compensating for foundational disparities. Her current focus wasn't merely on expanding area, a matter easily resolved through spatial enhancements. Instead, she aimed to optimize the existing space, refining living and activity zones aboard her vessel to their utmost efficiency. Pursuing sheer size alone would allow rapid expansion to 10,000 square meters, but such a hollow, quality-deficient ship would falter against oceanic tempests. Recognizing that each individual navigates their unique survival context with distinct choices, she refrained from interfering in others' methods, dismissing external comments with equanimity. Amid discussions of recent calamities, an odd message surfaced from Chenyin. Gushi, the so-called prodigy your zone 2333 once boasted about? Times change. Leaderboard shifts are natural. Though the statement seemed innocuous, its undertone grated. How could one speak of eras passing when merely 90 days had elapsed in the maritime calendar? A scant 3 months into this new world. Gushi, though seldom active in public chats, commanded unwavering support. Beyond her past crisis contributions, whispers of her behind-the-scenes efforts perpetuated her pervasive influence. Inevitably, criticism drew defenders. Retorts echoed. What era shift? Many breakthroughs in Zone 2333 originated from Sister She's guidance. You reap the benefits she sowed, yet dare to belittle her? Another added, hypocrites like you bite the hand that feeds, while Luman countered, nonsense. Sister She brokers alliances with deep-sea clans for humanity's future. You achieve nothing but idle chatter. As accusations mounted, Chen grew defensive. Having joined Zone 2333 post-Frost disaster, she aligned with the Human Revival Society, a group clashing with the Human Survivor Alliance. Tasked as a propagandist, her role involved tarnishing Zone 2333's legends to bolster her faction's prestige. Seizing this chance to undermine Gu Shi, she eagerly launched her smear campaign. Chen Yayun, who isn't aware that the favorability ratings of the deep-sea clans have plummeted so rapidly lately. It's quite possible that Gu Shi's behind-the-scenes maneuvers are to blame. Gu Shi glanced at Chen Yayun's name, silently committing it to memory, then opened the favorability system. It had been a while since she last checked, as she deemed it unnecessary. The sea wraiths, without a doubt, would show an increase. The merfolk were bound to decline. With a few chubby members of the Abyssal Scale clan around, their ratings would only rise steadily. As for the SSS-ranked deep-sea Colossus Turtle, who even cares? Regarding the other deep-sea clans she encountered later, most remained at zero favorability. Frankly, as a member of the deep-sea human clan, one shouldn't be too arrogant, assuming others pay much attention to you. Yet, if she were to claim credit for any drop in favorability, it would solely be with the merfolk. From previous assassination attempts to later snatching auction items, each act danced right on their nerves. Deep-sea Colossus Turtle, 0 deep-sea merfolk, minus 120 deep-sea sea wraiths, 70 deep-sea Abyssal Scale clan. 60 upon seeing the updated ratings, Gu Shi couldn't help but frown. The rise in the Abyssal Scale clan was expected, but why had the sea wraith's favorability decreased? Puzzled, she closed the intelligent species favorability interface and switched back to the chat group. She carefully crafted her words and sent a message in the channel, deliberately vague and non-revealing. Gu Shi, sitting idly on the ship, yet blame falls from the sky. Chen Yayun, don't deny it. Just show us your favorability ratings. The intelligent species favorability system only displays those deep-sea clans one has encountered. Others remain hidden. If someone's list is almost entirely negative, it's likely they, as the first to meet the deep-sea clans, have managed to offend them thoroughly. Gu Shi, sorry, but I'm under no obligation to answer you. I have only one deep-sea clan as an enemy. The kind that would skin and dismember you on sight. Lin Xiao. Haha, that's hilarious. So, there's no such thing as a favorability drop because sworn enemies don't need boosting. They're already in the negatives beyond repair. I believe this has nothing to do with Sister She. But it's true that some deep-sea clans' favorability has declined, though the reason is unclear. Just then, a new message popped up. I have a theory. Since this disaster is a virus infecting both sea beasts and deep-sea clans, and it triggers psychic disturbances. Could it be that the drop in intelligent species favorability is also linked to this? This message ignited the group's discussion. Chapter 280. Influence is a cyclical process. Reading this, Gu Shi recalled recent events. When they first entered the ocean world, no one knew of the existence of deep-sea clans or sea beasts, mistaking the disaster for a mere trial. But over time, as the seas opened up, they gradually discovered the presence of other intelligent species in this world. Could the disaster affect the deep-sea clans and sea beasts? Before this catastrophe, Gu Shi hadn't paid much attention to it. However, this calamity clearly demonstrates that sea beasts and the deep-sea tribes are equally vulnerable to disaster. Yet, what relevance does the survival struggle of the deep-sea tribes hold for humanity? Moreover, this decline in favorability isn't isolated to a single tribe, but affects many. At that moment, a new message flashed across the chat channel. There's something I'd like to share, which might be helpful to everyone. Upon its appearance, all discussions halted in unison. The speaker suggested that it might not be a widespread reduction in the deep-sea tribes' favorability toward humans, but rather a decrease in their favorability toward all other deep-sea tribes. She then recounted her observations. Recently, during her voyage, she encountered 2 deep-sea tribes moving together. At the time, their relationship seemed amicable. With a mass die-off of fish in the sea, they had joined forces to forage, acting as cooperative partners. When they spotted her, they did not attack, but instead exchanged some items. A few days later, she met the same 2 tribes again, but the situation had drastically changed. They appeared agitated, seemingly quarreling over fish, and she dared not approach, observing from a distance. Suddenly, both tribes turned their gaze toward her, even from afar. She could sense the malevolent aura they emitted, prompting her to swiftly steer her vessel away from their feeding grounds. Not long after, she encountered a deep-sea tribe member reduced to a skeletal form. After a fierce battle, she survived and later realized, upon reflection, that the skeletal creature was one of the individuals from the two tribes she had previously met. After she finished her account, everyone began sharing their thoughts. Some speculated that a virus was causing mental disturbances, leading to irritability and conflicts, which could escalate into violent clashes. Others remarked on her misfortune, advising to keep a safe distance, while praising her strength for being able to combat the deep-sea tribe. Many found her perspective credible. It wasn't a decline in favorability toward humans, but toward all other deep-sea tribes. If true, conflicts would be inevitable, involving numerous tribes across the seas. Exclamations arose, questioning if this signaled an imminent chaos among the deep-sea tribes, akin to a warring states era in the ocean. However, some dismissed this as an overreaction, attributing the mental turmoil to the virus and expressing confidence in the ocean's vastness and self-purifying capacity to mitigate the issue over time. Despite uncertainty about the disaster's duration, when asked if there were alternative solutions, silence fell upon the group. Then, the storyteller added a final warning. By the way, I almost forgot. If you encounter skeletal deep-sea tribes, be extremely cautious, as they possess formidable regenerative abilities. Despite lacking self-awareness, they retain the racial traits of the deep-sea tribe. Oh my, this should have been mentioned earlier. How did you eliminate them? Gushi involuntarily pictured a scene of fiery scale attacks, surmising that the girl must have employed a similar method. Using fire, but the fire's intensity must be sufficiently great. Ordinary flames won't suffice. With that, the girl shared her own solution. I was fortunate to have a decent weapon with a burning attribute, crafted from fire essence. Though effective, it comes at a high cost. Additionally, I discovered that fire essence can be used directly as ammunition. Intrigued, Gushi inquired, "Not a fire cannon?" The girl replied, "No, while fire cannons are powerful, simply throwing fire essence as explosives works too. However, detonation requires a mental collision, demanding some skill and psychic control." Gushi mused, so that's another approach. She realized everyone had their unique survival tactics. This method wasted fire essence, but could serve in desperate times. Yet, she wondered if the girl knew about enhancing fire cannon potency. In light of the girl's generous sharing, Gushi offered her own modest insight. Fire cannons can be amplified. They primarily concentrate heat, so stacking fire essence together boosts their power. But be cautious of fire hazards. Ha ha ha. I bet Sister She's ship has had its share of blazes. Amused, she added, "It's quite hilarious, but discovering how to enhance fire cannons makes it worthwhile. Thanks to Sister She and the girl for their selfless contributions. My fire essence is limited, so using it as bombs isn't feasible. But I'll try Sister She's method to strengthen the cannon." To the friend above, remember fire safety. Observing the light-hearted banter, Gushi felt a tinge of resignation at becoming the subject of gossip. Having drawn preliminary conclusions, she decisively closed the chat panel. Reflecting on the clues, she deduced the likely cause of the current situation. First, after the deep freeze, a virus emerged, leading to mass fish deaths, which in turn infected the deep-sea tribe and sea creatures that prey on them. The virus triggered psychic turmoil in these beings, resulting in constant conflicts among the deep-sea tribe. Post-mortem, they turned into skeletal remains, wandering the seas devoid of consciousness. The zombie sea creatures she had encountered earlier were likely in a similar state. Possibly due to their size, they didn't skeletonize as rapidly as the deep-sea tribe. In contrast, the virus had a limited impact on humans, as they ceased consuming sea fish upon noticing the die-offs. Although it affected their psychic energy, the isolation on individual ships, with no direct contact with others or the deep-sea tribe, kept the consequences minimal. From this perspective, it seems that when disasters strike, whether they directly affect humanity or not, humans ultimately bear the consequences. It truly feels as though we are one with this world, Gushi murmured softly. Her words reached AC's ears. Piralu, this is an unavoidable reality of survival in this world. Unexpected events can occur at any moment. Gushi looked up as sunlight streamed through the window, blurring AC's silhouette. I know, but it suddenly struck me how disasters impact the deep-sea clans even more profoundly than they do us humans. It's such a peculiar sensation, she reflected inwardly, adding that perhaps the world had become more tangible to her senses. After speaking, she turned to AC and inquired, "Is there something you need?" AC replied, "Ariel has emerged." Gushi paused briefly, then urged him forward. "Let's go. We have much to attend to." Chapter 281. Ariel's bubbles. Ariel was not incapable of walking on legs. It had merely been enslaved for so long that it felt somewhat unaccustomed. Gushi allowed it to practice independently, and before long, it had mastered all the essentials of moving on foot across the ground. Descending the stairs with AC toward the skating rink, they discovered that Ariel was no longer afraid of the little chubby balls and had even been persuaded by them to take up skating. Though a novice, Ariel mimicked the chubby ball's movements and swiftly glided with an air of remarkable proficiency. Gushi watched as its long pink hair danced wildly in the rink's chilly air, its shimmering white scales gleaming under the sunlight. With graceful, swift movements across the ice, it spun, its scales casting dazzling arcs of light. Gushi stood in awe, her jaw nearly dropping. This is genius. A natural advertisement. An exceptional employee ready for duty without any training. Truly befitting a mermaid. Nearby, the chubby balls, captivated by its elegant performance, halted their activities and gathered around the rink, cheering and applauding enthusiastically. Yinlin stood not far from Gushi, observing Ariel on the ice. Its mouth twisted in a pout. Its fiery scales seemed to dim slightly. It couldn't help but mutter under its breath, "Humph, what's so great? It's just that its scales are a bit brighter." Though minor envy was insignificant, the remark was overheard by all the fish present and Gushi. AC glanced between Yinlin and Ariel before remarking solemnly, "Purelu, Yinlin, your scales are still quite distinctive." Gushi, noting the flame-like scales, echoed AC's sentiment. "They're indeed special." Yinlin retorted with a scoff, "Pushio, but its scales appear brighter than mine in the sunlight." Seeing the hint of envy in its eyes, Gushi asked, "Could it be that you have a fondness for sparkling things?" "Pushio, I'm a fire fish. Being bright is only natural." Gushi understood then. No wonder Yinlin had always regarded Ariel with some disdain. It all came down to this reason. When it comes to matters of aesthetics, what could she possibly do? "Yinlin, if you fancy something, you could put in more effort, save up, and I'll help you acquire those shimmering treasures." Gushi reminisced about the glistening objects she had seen. "The sea wraith has plenty. I'm sure you'll adore them." As she spoke, she glanced toward AC, the implication clear. AC nodded in agreement. "Peruru, that's right." Just then, Ariel paused and made its way toward Gushi. "This place is truly wonderful," Ariel shyly remarked. Gushi had already noticed that Ariel's temperament differed from AC and Yinlin's. It was more introverted, so she softened her tone and inquired, "Have they already briefed you on the ship's affairs?" Ariel nodded. "They mentioned that I need to work here?" This was likely Yinlin's doing, but it wasn't incorrect. Mermaids may be beautiful, but they must still contribute through labor, especially since the previously purchased cultivation space ought to be utilized now. Initially, she had intended for Yinlin to manage it, but a more suitable candidate had emerged. Yinlin, being a fish that breathes fire, though intelligent enough, posed a risk of accidentally incinerating the plants. Moreover, its restless nature made it ill-suited for confinement in a space. Choosing it had been a last resort due to lack of alternatives. Ariel, however, was different. Its reserved disposition allowed it to dwell comfortably in the space, and with fewer interactions. The role suited it better. Considering skills, there was no need to wait until the taming phase, so Gushi asked Ariel, "What are you capable of?" After a moment's thought, Ariel replied, "Basking in the sun, especially on rocks." Gushi felt a wave of exasperation, thinking how similar this was to AC's idleness. "Is there anything else?" she pressed, unwilling to give up. Ariel shook its head vigorously. "What if you encounter danger?" Gushi prompted again, hopeful. "Blowing bubbles?" Ariel suggested listlessly, clearly displeased with its own ability. "Sure. Ha ha ha, blowing bubbles." Yinlin's reaction was the most exaggerated. Gushi shot Yinlin a stern look before gently encouraging Ariel. "Show us what you can do." Pouting, Ariel blew a bubble toward Yinlin. The bubble emerged from its lips, swiftly expanding, and before Yinlin could react, it enveloped the fish entirely. Glimmering with iridescent hues, the bubble drifted leisurely skyward. From the outside, it appeared transparent and fragile, as if it would burst at a touch. with no sign of the trapped fish within. Fish are accustomed to water. Even those with unique adaptations merely stroll on land. Suddenly lifted into the air, the sensation of weightlessness sent Yinlin into a panic. Shoo! Hey, Ariel, what kind of bubble is this? Let me out now. The bubble ascended higher, twirling slowly in the air. Yinlin fluttered within, its fiery scales shimmering inside the bubble. Gushi burst into laughter at the stark contrast between Yinlin's earlier smugness while mocking Ariel's bubbles and its current panic state. This was the price of arrogance. Amidst his amusement, Gushi inquired, Ariel, this bubble actually has an invisibility effect. Without any sound, one wouldn't even know there's a sea beast inside. Hearing the praise, Ariel felt a touch of pride, crossing its arms and responding with a pleased hum. I've always used this to evade enemies. How high can it fly? Gushi asked. As long as there's sufficient mental energy, it can soar quite high. AIC interjected, adding, why not use this time to test how high it can go? He then turned to Ariel, reassuring, with me here, even if your mental energy depletes, there's no need to worry. After a brief pause, AIC glanced upward, noting, a beast as large as Yinlin won't get hurt from a fall. Gushi agreed it was a good idea, though Yinlin seemed to have a minor issue. Just then, the little chubby balls clamored to ride the bubble. Weighing between a sea beast's flight and the small creature's play, Gushi opted for the former. I see. That's a brilliant suggestion. He voiced his full support. Inside the bubble, Yinlin protested loudly upon hearing the plan. I'm afraid of heights. Let me down. Ariel, please release me. I feel dizzy. Oh, I'm falling. Gushi shook his head ruefully at the beast who had earlier stubbornly denied its fear. Should we bring it down? Ariel asked, feeling a pang of sympathy. Initially, it had only intended to tease the flame fish beast with the bubbles. But seeing it drift aimlessly in the air, much of its anger had subsided. Let's bring it down for now, Gushi decided, aware that overcoming acrophobia requires gradual exposure to avoid leaving psychological scars. Following his instruction, Ariel gently waved a hand, and the bubble descended slowly. Upon touching the ground, it softly burst, and Yinlin stumbled out, complaining as it ran, phew, that was terrifying. Everything was so clear inside. I don't want to go back up. Pausing and turning, Yinlin, forgetting its lesson, remarked to Ariel, Ariel, that fish's ability is just like yours, and it goes sky high. Oh, so it's a one-way mirror. Gushi expressed surprise at Ariel's bubble. Chapter 282, Inspiring Sound Domain, Planting Space. Although Yinlin was quite dissatisfied with Ariel's skill, Gushi found it fascinating, particularly for a sea beast to possess a flying ability and even minor directional control was truly unique among its kind. After further inquiry, Gushi learned that the bubbles Ariel produces can expand up to 3 times its own size. This ability could only be considered a marginal auxiliary in combat. Additionally, Ariel possessed another skill called Inspiring Melody. As it was a group ability and Ariel had always been a solitary sea creature, it remained unaware of its specific effects. Just from the name, Gushi surmised it was a supportive skill. Since Ariel itself was uncertain, they decided to test it right away. Gushi looked at Ariel and said, now is the perfect time to try out your skill. The other fish nodded in agreement. Encouraged by Gushi and Little Chubby, Ariel mustered the courage to demonstrate Inspiring Melody. Ariel gathered everyone together while positioning itself behind them. Nervously, it announced, I'm going to start now. Everyone nodded, focusing intently to perceive any changes. Taking a deep breath, Ariel began to chant. Instantly, a golden radiance enveloped its form, spreading outward like swift rays of light, forming an expanding golden circle that enclosed Gushi and the fish. An exhilarating melody emanated from Ariel, blending the call of a horn with ethereal singing, imbued with a powerful force that stirred the soul, igniting fervor in both humans and fish. What is this? Gushi pondered the changes within, feeling mentally invigorated but noticing little else for the moment. Sure, let me test my skill, exclaimed Flame Scale, standing within the circle as it released a small flame using its psychic energy. Aware of its limited firepower, it dared not unleash anything too large. Yet, the pea-sized flame expanded to the size of a fist. Uncharacteristically, Flame Scale refrained from mocking Ariel's ability and instead offered a grudging compliment. Sure, this skill is somewhat acceptable. Upon hearing this, Ariel's eyes lit up instantly. Sure, but since you lack offensive skills, it might not be very useful. Don't worry, stick with me, and I'll have your back. AIC silently glanced at Flame Scale before averting its gaze. The first effect of Inspiring Melody was now evident. It enhanced attacks. Excluding AIC, this ability proved remarkably potent in group battles. Wondering if there were additional effects, Gushi turned to Flame Scale with curiosity. Flame Scale, aside from the flame growing larger, do you feel anything else? For instance, was it easier to release the flame? Flame Scale tilted its head in thought and replied, I didn't pay much attention earlier, but looking back, it seemed like I used less psychic energy when releasing the flame. Its eyes sparkled with excitement as it eagerly suggested, let me try a bigger flame to confirm. Gushi quickly reached out to stop it. Hold on, a larger flame could be dangerous. What if we accidentally set the ship on fire? I'll handle it instead. Flame Scale nodded with a hint of disappointment. Gushi steadied herself, channeled her psychic energy, and unleashed a long and used mental assault. After the skill's activation concluded, she assessed her mental state and immediately revealed an expression of delight. Truly, within the scope of this ability, the spiritual energy consumed had diminished somewhat. It appeared that this invigorating sound domain not only enhanced offensive capabilities, but also reduced the expenditure of spiritual power during skill execution. The surrounding fish exchanged bewildered glances. Though they sensed Gushi's spiritual fluctuations, the skill itself? What skill are you referring to? I witnessed nothing at all. The other fish nodded in agreement, their curiosity piqued about Gushi's abilities. Gushi smiled mysteriously. This skill of mine is perilous, resulting in either death or injury. As for who perishes and who gets harmed, that depends on the level of one's spiritual energy, which is why I seldom employ it nowadays. Even AIC looked at her in astonishment, bubbling, I had assumed your skill was merely summoning spikes, but it turns out that's not the case? Gushi paused briefly before chuckling. Of course, my skills are not limited to one, and summoning spikes isn't a standalone ability. It's merely a variation of my skills. Explaining all this would be endless. She promptly shifted the topic. Ariel, your skill is quite impressive. Now you understand its utility, don't you? Ariel beamed happily, feeling as though a fragment of her self-doubt had been filled. Though comprehending Ariel's skill took considerable time, understanding each crew member was an essential duty for Gushi as the captain. Once this matter was settled, she led everyone to the cultivation space. This fixed-dimensional area was conveniently located near the planting zone for easy access. The space was sizable, nearly 1,000 square meters, with a vast majority consisting of fertile, loose soil, while the small aquatic section held little appeal for the deep-sea race. Consequently, Gushi acquired this expansive space at an exceptionally low price. The soil within appeared rich and pliable, having been prepared in advance by an octopus that piled in nutrient-rich earth. Along the edges of the space, simple tools such as small shovels, watering cans, and seeds were neatly arranged, all placed there by Gushi. She beckoned Ariel over and handed her prepared cucumber seeds, then began patiently instructing her on the art of sowing. Ariel gazed curiously at the seeds in her hand, then at the holes Gushi had dug in the ground. She crouched down, placed a seed inside, covered it with soil, and watered it. Gushi then encouraged her to dig another hole and plant independently. Ariel proved to be quick-witted, swiftly mastering the planting technique. All right, once the seed is buried, you need to channel your spiritual energy. Gushi recalled AIC's process of cultivating the ice crystal giant tree and guided Ariel with practiced ease. Ariel nodded obediently and focused on infusing her spiritual power. Be careful not to input it too rapidly. Proceed gradually, Gushi cautioned, drawing from her experience with the ice crystal giant tree to ensure the seeds wouldn't undergo a similar transformation, thus providing meticulous guidance. Ariel's spiritual energy flowed like a gentle stream, gradually seeping into the earth to nourish the newly planted seed. As her energy poured forth, the seed began to transform, sprouting, growing, and swiftly stretching its stem and leaves. Gushi concealed her astonishment behind a calm facade. Unlike seeds cultivated in the system's planting boxes, which displayed a countdown to maturity, these thrived under the infusion of spiritual power. Though aware of this fact, questions lingered. What variations existed among different seeds? To what extent could they develop? These were matters for Ariel to document and resolve. As Ariel continued channeling her energy, the cucumber plant blossomed, prompting Gushi to halt her efforts. Yellen approached, observing the flourishing vegetation and boasting, "Puffed. Is that all? I can do that too." Encouraged by its confidence, Gushi handed over a seed, allowing it free rein. Yinlin mimicked Ariel's actions, successfully burying the seed. However, accustomed to the energy output of its fire-based abilities, it inadvertently set the soil ablaze during sustained spiritual exertion. Fortunately, AC intervened with a burst of ice to extinguish the flames. Staring at the charred earth, Yinlin chuckled awkwardly. Ha ha. AC retorted, Peruru, you're not suited for this. Stick to fighting. Gushi surmised that combat must be among Yinlin's innate skills. Chapter 283. Ship Construction. Power Core. Since taking on the role of cultivator within the spatial realm, Ariel spent most of her time there. The little chubby spheres, originally intent on wandering the seas, had postponed their travels due to the occasional appearance of skeletal remains, opting to linger aboard the future a while longer. While everyone else busied themselves with tasks, or, like AC, occasionally vanished, Yinlin roamed the ship restlessly. Boredom drove it to pester Gushi repeatedly about when the smelting area would be completed. Gushi explained that expansion was delayed by a shortage of materials. Meanwhile, the steadily declining population in Zone 2333 weighed heavily on everyone's minds. Gradually, more individuals converted their vessels into ships to evade virus-infected sea beasts and deep-sea clans. On the 95th day of the maritime calendar, after days of delays, Gushi finally acquired sufficient materials for the ship's expansion. With skillful manipulation, she enlarged the vessel to 200 square meters, exceeding the planned size by 200. Stowing her hammer, she gazed contentedly at the newly constructed section. To upgrade to a full-fledged ship, a power core was still needed, but first, she had to build the core chamber and a floating communication station. Standing on the freshly expanded deck, Gushi faced the howling sea wind that tousled her hair. Squinting, she meticulously surveyed the available space, mentally mapping out locations for the core chamber and communication station. Just then, AC, who had departed hours earlier, returned once more. He stood on the deck, methodically expelling the materials concealed within his gastric pouch. Gushi fixed her gaze upon them and recognized them as the ember crystals she had long sought in vain. Just as she had resigned herself to substituting other materials, AC unexpectedly resolved her dilemma. Overwhelmed with astonishment, she hurried forward, swiftly gathering the ember crystals into her backpack. AC, where did you discover these? Gushi inquired curiously as she collected them. Bloop bloop, in the sea, AC replied, then paused to elaborate further. To be precise, at the ocean floor, I observed a coral reef beneath which lay a concealed trench. Descending into that trench, I encountered materials identical to those used in that structure, he added, gesturing toward the house constructed from ember crystals. Upon hearing this, Gushi felt a fleeting sense of bewilderment. After all, ember crystals were typically formed from wood subjected to intense heat under peculiar circumstances, prized primarily for their fire-resistant properties. Yet, how could trees exist in an oceanic trench? Perhaps they had drifted there from some unknown origin. However, she quickly dismissed these musings as trivial. What truly mattered was the abundant supply of ember crystals now in her possession. With these, she could construct the ship's core chamber and a floating communication station. As AC recounted his tale, Gushi's excitement swelled with exhilaration. AC, you've done splendidly, she exclaimed. AC responded with a composed nod, showing no intention of departing. Noticing his lingering presence, Gushi queried, do you wish to observe here? He affirmed with another nod. Unaccustomed to such persistence from him, she refrained from further comment and activated the construction interface to commence building. AC watched intently as Gushi manipulated invisible points in the air, her fingers dancing for a considerable duration before she ceased her actions. As she stilled, he turned to survey the surroundings and noticed the ethereal core chamber materializing adjacent to the main structure, while the communication station took form farther off, near the vessel's stern. His eyes widened with fascination as he studied the blueprints, recalling how he had previously witnessed Gushi hammering the foundation. He anticipated that she would now proceed to erect the walls and other components. Sure enough, upon hearing Gushi declare, all set, now it's just a matter of hammering away, she wielded her mallet with precision, and soon the spectral edifices transformed into tangible reality. Having completed her task, Gushi turned to AC, who had been observing her work throughout. What do you think? She asked. Bloop bloop, it's utterly marvelous, he responded. Gushi chuckled briefly, but did not dwell on his remark, instead refocusing on her duties. She pushed open the door and entered the approximately 50 square meter power chamber, a space destined to house not only the power core, but also the ship's entire defense system. While other tasks could be deferred, her immediate priority was fabricating the power core. Once more, she accessed the construction panel and selected the section for crafting the power core. To craft the power core, one must first determine its position aboard the ship. Gushi promptly selected this spot on the latest blueprint, designating it for the core. A blue circular area materialized within the engine compartment space, allowing her to adjust its placement. She opted to position the blue circle at the very center. Once fixed, the next step involved placing the core components. She chose the largest abyssal crystal as the central element, then filled the auxiliary zones with a material known as starlight sand. In the power core assembly, starlight sand serves primarily as a medium for energy conduction and transformation, capable of absorbing, storing, and releasing vast amounts of energy while maintaining stable performance throughout the process. Typically, any conductive material would suffice. In the absence of alternatives, star steel could also be used. Her selection of starlight sand was driven by its presence among AIC's burial artifacts. Adhering to the principle of utilizing what is readily available, she employed it without hesitation. The starlight sand, resembling scattered stardust, was arranged around the abyssal crystal. As it drew near, the crystal's pull caused it to adhere seamlessly, forming a potent energy field that organized itself into a rhythmic, ring-like constellation encircling the crystal. The final phase involved constructing the fuel placement area. Gushi utilized a material called spirit silver thread, an item she had serendipitously acquired at an auction. Upon insertion, the fine threads began to coil and intertwine beneath the core's energy body, weaving into an intricate mesh structure. To her eyes, this network resembled an energy amplifier, gathering ambient energies and guiding their flow within the web. After a final confirmation, the power core assembly was complete, manifesting at the heart of the engine compartment. Puru, is this the power core? AIC marveled, gazing at the structure nearly as tall as himself. The central abyssal crystal pulsated rhythmically, emitting energy like a beating heart, a stark contrast to its previous dormant state. Gushi, however, was clueless about the technical intricacies of core fabrication, as the game system handled all such tasks. To preempt AIC's curiosity, she deftly shifted the topic. Let's give it a try, she said, producing a fragment of abyssal crystal and bringing it close to the core. As it neared, she felt a gentle tug, and the shard drifted upward toward the assembly. The surrounding starlight sand began to shimmer faintly, its once calm particles vibrating in a steady rhythm. The once tranquil crystalline sand particles began to shimmer with a brilliant radiance, gradually intensifying into a luminous halo. Through this incandescent ring, energy from the abyssal crystal fragments started transferring into the power core. Bathed in the halo's glow, the fragments slowly melted, transforming into swirling masses of deep azure energy that were absorbed by the abyssal crystal. As it assimilated this power, the crystal's luminescence grew more resplendent, its emitted energies captured by the intricate network of spirit silver filaments. These energies swiftly coursed through the web-like structure, while the activated core cast a profound blue illumination across the entire chamber. Gushi perceived a formidable surge of energy, as if the very forces of the cosmos had converged within this diminutive core. Was this the power of the abyssal crystal? Pulalu seemed to affirm it. How could one discern the optimal moment to add materials? Puzzled, Gushi circled the power core assembly repeatedly, but found no means to access information. She raised her hand to touch it, only to be halted by AIC. Pulalu cautioned, such immense energy is best not approached lightly. Gushi withdrew, conceding the wisdom in his words. Pulalu, let me attempt it, AIC declared, placing his hand upon the core. Upon contact with its energy field, he encountered an invisible barrier separating his palm from the core. Applying slight mental force, he found each incremental advance demanded tremendous effort. Frowning, he retracted his hand, sensing a potent repulsion resisting his approach. Forcing a breach might trigger unforeseen perils, so he desisted. At that moment, the aquaculture system's alert chimed in Gushi's mind. Your fish lacks authorization. Startled, she realized the core's periphery was touchable, yet she refrained from intervening personally. Wait a moment, she instructed AIC. Accessing the system interface, she located his profile, designated him as a steward, and upon the crown emblem's activation, heard the system's personified notification. Your fish has gained authorization. It's done. Try again, Gushi said. Pululu? Just like that? Yes, she replied, inwardly noting that AIC could now deposit found resources directly into storage, bypassing intermediaries. Nodding, AIC reached for the power core once more. This time, the previous impediment had vanished entirely. Suddenly, an interface shimmering with an ethereal blue glow materialized, hovering before the power core. Ace was slightly startled, stepping back a few paces as he gazed bewildered at Gushi. Approaching the display, Gushi observed it was adorned with intricate icons and data streams. At its center lay a circular map marked with 8 directional indicators, pinpointing the current location of the future. The pulsating, outward radiating light revealed the map's real-time updates. With this tool, combined with the floating communication station, locating other vessels became feasible. To the left of the circular map resided the speed control section, depicted as a columnar diagram subdivided into various velocity tiers, adjustable via a touch-sensitive area below. On the right, the fuel indicator featured a miniature tank icon accompanied by the current reserve level. Despite the absence of textual labels, the interface remained intuitive and lucid, instantly comprehensible to Gushi. Ace edged closer to Gushi, his eyes wide with confusion as he stared at the display. Blub blub, what is all this? I can't make sense of it, he murmured. No need to fret, little fish. I'll teach you, Gushi reassured. She proceeded to explain each section's significance while manipulating the data, and Ace quickly grasped the concepts. At that moment, the game system's chime resonated. Future power system activated. Future area scan in progress. Future meets vessel upgrade criteria. Proceed with upgrade? Yes. Vessel upgrade underway. Please check back later. Noting the nearly 30-minute wait, Gushi relocated the defenses behind the power chamber before heading to construct the floating communication station. With all materials on hand, she methodically commenced the assembly. Gushi entered the small cabin at the stern, Ace trailing behind. Accessing the construction interface, she selected the Floating Communication Station project. A 3-dimensional holographic model of the station materialized, suspended mid-air. She verified the required components. Floating Communication Station, materials, 20 sea dragon scales, 10 star steel, 50 seaweed fibers. Die Moonstone, Diesween Shimfui. Begin construction? Yes. Upon confirmation, the materials sprang into action. Unlike previous rudimentary blueprints, this station marked the first project demanding such an array of resources. Gushi watched intently as the interface displayed an animated sequence. First, the star steel being precision cut and positioned, followed by the weaving of seaweed fibers, the inlaying of moonstones, and finally, the application of windsheam fruit extract. The entire fabrication process spanned 15 minutes, during which she remained transfixed, observing every phase unfold. Yet she could perceive the contents of the construction panel, while AC remained oblivious. So in AC's eyes, Gushi appeared to be merely daydreaming. Just as he was about to voice his inquiry, Gushi suddenly announced, "It's done." Peruru? What? AC was momentarily taken aback. I said the floating communication station is finished, Gushi repeated. Ignoring AC's bewildered expression, she retrieved the completed station from the construction interface. The station stood as high as her chest, its overall form reminiscent of a graceful jellyfish. At its apex lay a transparent dome, beneath which a core structure was meticulously assembled from overlapping sea dragon scales. A framework forged of star steel extended outward like the tentacles of a jellyfish, each adorned with moonstone inlays. Gushi surmised these were likely for receiving signals. Delicate networks woven from seaweed fibers clung to the frame, resembling the muscular tissue of the creature. At the base, a ring of specially treated wind chime fruit shells formed the foundation. Unlike the power core, the communication station featured an operational panel. Currently, it emitted a soft azure glow, displaying an array of intricate symbols and buttons. Gushi immediately recognized this as the interface for inputting contact codes and performing other functions. Peruru? Is this a jellyfish? No, it's a communication station. Peruru? What's its purpose? AC's questions sparked excitement in Gushi. Come, let me test it out. Chapter 285, Communication. Flame scale room. Since the onset of the viral catastrophe, Gushi had long aspired to construct a communication station, but constraints of the future space had delayed it until now. Noting that the ship's upgrade would complete in a few minutes, She seized the opportunity to contact several friends in the 2333 squad group, requesting their communication IDs. Gushi posted a message in the group. "I've got a communication station now. Add me as a friend?" Swiftly, replies poured in, with Sun Yiming, ever the businessman, responding fastest. Sun Yiming. "Wow, Sister Shi, I've been waiting for this. My ide ishkitsaz horminsneyedik. Feel free to add me." Gushi. "Alright, adding you right away." Temporarily closing the chat group, she shifted her attention to the station's control panel. At her touch, it sprang to life. "Welcome to the floating communication station. This station's ID, 66666. Initiating binding. Binding in progress. Binding target. Future. Confirm binding? Yes. Binding successful. Connecting to Future's power core. Confirm connection? Yes. Updating Future's location. Update successful after a flurry of additional prompts." Gushi finally accessed the main interface of the communication station. At this moment, the main interface of the Future had synchronized with the circular map of the power core, though its functional layout differed. On one side of the screen, a prominent icon for adding identification numbers caught Gushi's attention. She tapped it with her finger, prompting a new input box to appear. After entering Sun Yiming's ID, 234, she sent the friend request. Once the addition was complete, she switched to the 2333 squad chat group. "Gushi, my ID is 66666. Please accept it." Sun Yiming. "Got it. That number is so characteristic of Sister Shi." Reflecting on her own ID, Gushi fell silent. Just then, the moonstones on the jellyfish lights began to glow, rotating in a rhythmic pattern. Gushi glanced at the screen, and within seconds, a new window popped up. "ID 234 has accepted your friend request. Connecting to communication station 234 for the first time, please wait." Simultaneously, a dynamic icon appeared in the window, resembling two jellyfish weaving back and forth. After a short while, new text displayed on the interface. "ID 234 successfully added." Gushi opened the ID list and found Sun Yiming's ship name clearly listed, with the ID first, followed by the ship name, and finally the owner's name, ensuring no mix-ups. Game notification. Ship upgrade completed. Please check the construction interface. Hearing the alert, Gushi reopened the construction interface. The model remained the same, but its functionality had evolved. Previously, the ship interface only allowed blueprint creation, with other layouts requiring manual effort. Now, it enabled direct addition and movement of existing exterior items, along with one-click layout options. As long as materials were sufficient, she could replicate an existing room layout to form a new structure instantly. Additionally, it supported localized space relocation. By selecting an area, the system would verify mobility and allow for complete repositioning. Upon seeing these features, Gushi's eyes lit up, realizing they would significantly streamline her construction tasks. In high spirits, she returned to the 2333 squad group, where others had sent new messages. "Lin Xiao, Sister Shi, you finally have a communication station, with all the materials ready. Why did it take so long to build?" Lin Xiao, by the way, my number is 7878. Lastly, Gushi paused at Luo Lin's message. "Luo Lin, mine is 66,669. Gushi, how come your ID is later than mine?" Luo Lin, "It wasn't very useful before, so I didn't build it." Gushi, "Not useful? Then why build it now?" Luo Lin, "Sun Yiming just messaged me and persuaded me to." At this point, Gushi understood. Sun Yiming had likely been urging Luo Lin all along, who used her lack of a station as an excuse. Now that she had built hers, Luo Lin had no more reasons to delay. After adding several others as friends, Gushi finally stopped. The reason was none other than AC, still waiting nearby. Gushi was surprised by his unexpected patience. Seeing her finally finish her tasks, AC asked, "Purilu, is this thing used to contact other deep-sea human clans?" Gushi, who still wasn't quite fond of the term deep-sea humans, paused briefly before nodding. "Purilu, you're not planning to seek them out, are you?" AC inquired with a hint of displeasure. "No, I only need to know their locations and how far they are from me. Unless necessary, I won't gather with them." Her ship was now lively enough, and she didn't need to force herself into crowds. Her sincere words lifted AC's spirits. With AC present, Gushi couldn't immediately check her friend's positions, and with an auction to attend later, they left the communication room together. As soon as they stepped out, they spotted Yinlin lurking not far away, acting suspiciously. "What you up to?" His demeanor made it impossible for Gushi to pretend ignorance. "Pushio, You build a house. Didn't you promise to build one for me too? Well, he was here to hurry her along. She sighed in resignation. I haven't forgotten, but don't you want to revert to your original form occasionally? The room wouldn't fit you. Pushio, I'm already saving up for spatial items. Yinlin lifted his head, casting a slightly envious glance at AC, though not as swift as him. Gushi retorted, then why the rush? Yinlin insisted, Pushio, I'm the only one without a permanent room. Hearing this, Gushi facepalmed. She had intended to build it after the auction, but his urgency left her no choice. With 2 houses already standing, she couldn't delay further. With a resigned sigh, Gushi told Yinlin, all right, let's start building your house now. Overjoyed, Yinlin's fishtail wagged like a propeller. The old smelting room was too small, but she hadn't had time to construct alternatives, so it had to remain temporarily. She designated a new open area for smelting. Opening the construction panel with the ship's building function, erecting structures was remarkably fast. However, for smelting distinct from other zones, Gushi laid a thick layer of ember crystal flooring over the foundation. Yinlin watched the house take shape eagerly, nearly reaching out to touch it, but Gushi stopped him. Wait, it's not finished yet. Pushio, but isn't it all done? Yinlin attempted to touch the virtual wall, only for his fin to pass through. He looked at Gushi in confusion. Under his gaze, she produced several hammers and began working efficiently, swiftly completing the structure. Done. As soon as she spoke, Yinlin reached out again, and this time his hand was blocked by the solid wall. His eyes widened in amazement, as if discovering something wonderfully intriguing. That is your room over there. Once you purchase the space, it will be permanently assigned to you. Yinlin understands this concept well. A room is one's private aquatic sanctuary, inaccessible to other fish or individuals. Only it can enter, making it its exclusive territory. Now that Gushi has finally designated this domain for it, Yinlin eagerly dashes inside. Though the room is bare, Yinlin still exclaims joyfully, Sure, this is my room. How wonderful. Chapter 286. Infecting the Deep Sea Tribe. Storming the auction resolving a matter is always a positive outcome. Thus, even though this situation deviated slightly from Gushi's original plans, she felt quite satisfied. After completing the construction of the new smelting room, Gushi hurried back to her quarters to prepare for her journey to the auction. Her primary objective for today's standard auction was the appearance of a suitable new sea creature, even if this creature's strength was only B rank, comparable to the octopus. Having it assist in sharing some duties would make it an invaluable crew member. Additionally, she intended to inquire with the sea wraith about the decline in its favorability toward her. Passing through the invitation's spatial portal, Gushi arrived at the auction venue. Having been delayed briefly, she entered just as the formal proceedings had commenced. Below, the sea creature she had her eye on was already up for bid. Kama beast. 800 gold coins. Upon hearing the auctioneer's call, Gushi ignored the sea wraith attendant who approached to greet her and swiftly made her way to the bidding area. After a quick glance at the increment rules, she immediately placed a bid using her mental energy, 850 gold coins. Typically, sea wraith attendants handle the bidding, but her decision to bid personally instantly revealed some details about her private booth to other deep-sea beings in separate compartments. After submitting her initial bid, Gushi returned to her seat. No sooner had she settled than the sea wraith attendant floated over. Supremely unparalleled guest, you have finally arrived. The sea wraith attendant shimmered brightly, having nearly resigned itself to earning nothing from today's event, seeing that it did not bombard her with rules or formalities. Gushi's earlier haste eased considerably. Hearing the ongoing escalation of bids outside, she knew the Kaima beast would not be claimed immediately. Yes, I was in a bit of a rush earlier. I'll rely on your assistance from now on, she said, then outlined her usual auction protocol. The sea wraith attendant glowed even more brilliantly as it listened. Excellent, excellent. I shall serve you with utmost dedication. Entrusting the bidding to the sea wraith, Gushi focused solely on observing the proceedings. At that moment, the prize for the Kaima beast had just reached 1,000 gold coins. Upon hearing the latest bid, she couldn't help but reflect on how affordable this sea creature was compared to the mermaid she had purchased previously. 50 gold coins. Gushi's sea wraith attendant calmly announced the bid. Nevertheless, another spectral host promptly raised the bid to 1,100 gold coins. While other items had preset maximum auction prices, Gushi typically imposed no such limits on objects she personally desired. Without explicit instructions from her, the spectral host turned to gaze at Gushi, awaiting her command. Seated calmly, Gushi transmitted her message. Continue without pause. If I deem the price excessive, I will signal you to stop. Thus, the spectral host resumed the bidding. At that moment, the opposing voice echoed once more, 1,100 gold coins. The spectral host swiftly countered with 1,150 gold coins. And so, the price escalated in successive rounds. With Gushi maintaining her composure throughout. Determined to acquire the Kaimob beast, she directed the spectral host to bid decisively. Gradually, the competing voices dwindled until only one remained. As the rival spectral host upped the offer, Gushi's attendant boldly announced 1,500 gold coins. First call for 1,500 gold coins. Second call for 1,500 gold coins. With the final step imminent, an unexpected disruption occurred. Instead of the anticipated concluding announcement, chaos erupted outside. Gushi rose from her seat. What is happening? Why is the bidding halted? She inquired. The spectral host glowed with a crimson hue, appearing agitated. Oh, supremely unparalleled guest. A deep-sea creature has defied the host's objections and escaped from its private chamber. Such incidents are rare, are they not? Indeed. Please remain seated. We shall resolve this promptly. Rather than returning to her place, Gushi, driven by curiosity, stood and approached the chamber's window. The spectral host attempted to dissuade her. Supremely unparalleled guest. This poses a risk. Although the chamber is shielded by spectral protections, danger persists. By now, Gushi had nearly reached S-rank proficiency, and given that attendees of ordinary auctions typically capped at S-rank, she felt confident in handling any unforeseen events. Thus, she casually reassured the spectral host and leaned out to peer through the window. Below, in the auction hall, a deep-sea entity resembling a fusion of a white shark and a killer whale, complete with wings, roared in fury. It produced a luminous pearl, then crushed it abruptly. Upon shattering, a potent and peculiar energy erupted from its core. This energy, akin to viscous black fluid, rapidly vaporized under its psychic influence, transforming into a dark mist that swiftly engulfed the entire auction space. The vision of many spectral hosts was obscured by this dark energy, plunging the venue into immediate chaos. Gushi found the energy vaguely familiar, reminiscent of the black, flowing substance that had clung to the skeletal deep-sea creature. Observing the chaotic sea wraiths, the deep-sea clan member exclaimed with delight, "Ha! You greedy sea scoundrels! Today, you shall all perish." Just as Gushi mused that this creature harbored destructive impulses, it abruptly charged toward her direction. Swiftly advancing, it clamored about eliminating the deep-sea clan rival who had outbid it. Instinctively, Gushi retreated several steps. Meanwhile, another deep-sea clan member exploited the turmoil, shattering the spatial barrier with psychic force to invade Gushi's compartment. Eyes blazing crimson with fury and resentment, it brandished a sharp-boned spike, lunging at Gushi while roaring, "I'll kill you." In response, Gushi summoned 64 sharp spikes, enveloping herself in a psychic shield as she braced for the assault. At that critical moment, the sea wraith attendant serving Gushi reacted swiftly. Its form swelled slightly, radiating an eerie green aura. The bone spike thrust by the deep-sea clan embedded itself deep into the wraith's body, resisting all attempts to dislodge it despite frantic tugging. Glowing with a stern red light, the attendant addressed the intruder gravely, violating auction rules, disrupting order. Enemy eliminated. Though the deep-sea clan struggled to break free, the attendant, unaffected by external dark energies, subdued it effortlessly. Confining the foe within a spatial prison, the wraith turned to Gushi and reassured, "Exalted and unparalleled guest, fret not. Here, all sea wraiths, ensure your safety. Please continue bidding with peace of mind." Calmly retracting her spikes, Gushi inquired, "So, how shall the auction proceed now?" Chapter 287. Half-Price Kima, Deep-Sea Clan Conference. The attendant responded earnestly, "Rest assured, the threat has been neutralized, and the auction will resume as scheduled." "Are you certain?" Gushi approached the window, gesturing toward the ongoing chaos outside. The sea wraiths remain in disarray. Who knows if those dark energies have adverse effects? Moreover, is Kaima still intact? If not, will the price remain unchanged? Gushi posed several pointed questions, rendering the attendant speechless. After a moment of silence, it replied slowly, "Your concerns are valid. I shall investigate the situation outside. Kindly wait here briefly." With that, the attendant's form gradually faded from the compartment. Gushi moved to the window, observing the lingering tumult. Shortly after, the attendant returned, its body shimmering with a gray glow. Apologies for the delay. It began, then detailed the ensuing arrangements. Kaima has been struck by unknown dark energy and is now unconscious. Thus, the previous auction is void. Regarding the influence of the dark energy, further inspection is required. The auction will resume only after everything is confirmed to be in order. Upon hearing this, Gushi felt discontented. This delay not only rendered her trip futile, but also left her uncertain about how long she would have to wait for another suitable sea beast fish. Frowning, she inquired, "Has no specific time been provided?" The sea wraith attendant replied, "No." She then asked, "What about the subsequent auction?" The attendant responded, "The auction will continue." After a moment's thought, Gushi proposed, "How about this? Sell me the kaima at half price. I'll offer 750 gold coins." This matter was beyond the attendant's authority, so it suggested consulting with superiors and excused itself to inquire. Before it departed, Gushi added, "If your superior disagrees, have them come to me." The sea wraith attendant shimmered away, and shortly after, the auction was announced to restart. Glancing outside, Gushi noticed that the sea wraiths present had been replaced by a new group. Without her attendant, she had to bid on her own, but as the current items were merely decorative, she simply returned to her seat to await the attendant's return. The sea wraith attendant's form gradually faded into the distance, and after a brief interval, the sea wraith supervisor accompanied the attendant to Gushi's private space compartment. This supervisor was notably larger than the ordinary attendants, and despite its efforts to restrain it, a palpable aura of spiritual energy emanated from its being. Gushi surmised that this was due to the recent incident's provocation. However, as sea wraiths, their respect for guests was ingrained in their very essence. "Supreme and unparalleled guest, I have heard of your request," the supervisor began. Gushi thought to herself that its presence alone implied disagreement, yet it left its words half-spoken. Tiring of this cryptic exchange, she cut straight to the point. "The kaima beast has been assaulted by dark energy and is now unconscious. The uncertainties surrounding its re-auction are unpredictable. I am willing to purchase it for 750 gold coins. I believe this is a reasonable offer." The sea wraith supervisor had not anticipated Gushi's direct approach. Its spiritual energy wavered momentarily. "This won't do," it countered. "Although the kaima beast has suffered an attack, its inherent value remains significant. Selling at half price is hardly justifiable." Gushi's tone turned stern as she pressed, "Do you even know what that dark energy is?" Her words compelled the supervisor to pay closer attention. "It's a virus. The recent anomalies among the skeletal deep-sea tribes and sea creatures are all linked to it." She grew increasingly grave, concluding sharply, "You are gravely underestimating this dark energy." Upon hearing this, the supervisor's spiritual fluctuations intensified further. The thought that not only the kaima, but several other sea wraiths have been infected filled it with inexplicable alarm. Yet, in the midst of negotiations, it cannot show weakness. "Have you witnessed it yourself?" the supervisor asked. Gushi cast a sidelong glance and replied, "More than witnessed. I have eliminated many." She paused briefly before continuing. "To this day, not a single one has ever escaped. You must understand, under these circumstances, my willingness to purchase kaima carries more than just a minor risk." The sea wraith representative fell silent for a moment, seemingly pondering Gushi's words. Observing this, Gushi added, "If you doubt me, you're free to re-auction kaima after her recovery. But don't blame me for not warning you if you end up losing everything." After another moment of thought, the sea wraith representative slowly replied, 750 gold coins is truly too low. The most I can reduce it to is 800. Unhurried, Gushi shook her head. 800 gold coins? That was Kaima's price when she was healthy. 750 is my final offer. The sea wraith representative remained firm. 800 gold coins, not a coin less. Seeing the unwavering stance, Gushi feigned withdrawal. "Very well, keep her and handle the treatment yourself. I want to take on that risk." Hearing this, the sea wraith representative grew anxious. Given that Gushi appeared genuinely knowledgeable about the dark energy, it reluctantly nodded in agreement. Gushi breathed a quiet sigh of relief, though it had taken some persuasion. Securing such a discount with just a few words was well worth the effort. Having conceded on the auction price, the sea wraith representative sought to gain an advantage elsewhere. It glimmered softly as it proposed. "The issue with the skeleton deep-sea tribe is growing increasingly severe, and since you claim to possess knowledge about the dark energy, I believe our deep-sea races should unite to address this problem. Gushi remained expressionless. Oh, and what do you propose? The Sea Wraith representative suggested. We could convene a council to discuss how to handle them. What are your thoughts? Gushi raised an eyebrow. All deep-sea races? The representative nodded. This would not only ensure every deep-sea race is aware of the dark energy-S threat. Agreed, Gushi interjected. What? The Sea Wraith representative, caught mid-explanation, had expected more resistance. It was taken aback by her immediate consent. I said, agreed, Gushi repeated. Time, location, number of participants, and method of participation. Recalling the sparse experience with past meetings, the representative stammered, the Sea Wraiths will organize the council. You will attend as the representative of the deep-sea humans. Each deep-sea race may send, 3 delegates. We will confirm the timing as soon as possible and send the invitation to the same dimensional space as your auction invitation. Gushi nodded languidly. That seems reasonably thorough. I hope the council proceeds smoothly. The Sea Wraith representative responded, we share that hope. This matter concerns not only the safety of the Sea Wraiths, but that of all deep-sea races. After their brief discussion, Gushi returned to her vessel with her spoils and kaima, beginning preparations for the upcoming Deep-Sea Council. Chapter 288. The conference debate. Gushi brought Kaima back to the ship, aware of the critical danger the creature was in and the urgent need for taming. Noticing her hurried demeanor, AIC and Yin Lin gathered around. Everyone watched in confusion as dark mist emanated from the unconscious Kaima. What's wrong with it? Yin Lin instinctively reached out, but the octopus only clung tighter to Gushi's leg. Poisoned, Gushi replied nonchalantly. Yin Lin's outstretched fin halted midair, then swiftly retracted as if recoiling from a contagion. What? Poisoned? What kind? Not that virus, is it? It shrieked, loud enough to echo across the vessel. Peruru. Silence. The natural animosity between ice and fire flared as AIC glared with lethal intensity. Under that deathly stare, Yin Lin fell quiet, observing Kaima in hushed concern. Just then, the octopus tugged at Gushi's leg. Squeak, will we be infected? Gushi patted its head reassuringly. No, with the fish feed we won't. Then why wait? Let's feed it immediately. Relieved by her words, Yin Lin eagerly took charge of the rescue. Gushi nodded, entrusting Kaima's care to Yin Lin. Though clumsy in its efforts, soon the sound of a successful bond echoed through the air. Hearing this, Gushi smiled knowingly as she continued her records. With a new recruit settled, the focus shifted to convening the Deep Sea Clan Conference, a rare opportunity for humanity. This gathering would not only introduce humans to other clans and showcase their uniqueness, but also allow intelligence gathering, particularly on clans hostile to humankind. Regrettably, only 3 slots were available. Gushi would claim one, and for safety, AIC would accompany her. The final spot would go to the human with the highest mental prowess. Selection wouldn't be arbitrary. Superior mental strength was essential. Power dictates authority. Without it, one remains subjugated under the oppression and pity of the deep-sea clans. Reflecting on this, Gushi opened her personal attribute panel. ID 23333 name. Gushi race. Human gender. Female age. 22 health. 700 attack. 526 defense. 522 speed. 541 mental strength. A value. 5,000 through various endeavors. Her offensive, defensive, and speed attributes had significantly improved. Yet, their current modest levels stem from her brief time in this world. Given more time, they would swiftly ascend into the quadruple digits. Moreover, her psychic abilities were on the verge of reaching S rank. Apart from selecting candidates these past few days, she dedicated all her remaining time to rigorous training, aiming to attend the conference with a completely renewed presence. Gushi switched her attribute interface to the chat channel of Region 2333, where she proceeded to post a startling announcement. In Region 2333's local chat group, 8065 for 100000 Gushi, seeking the individual with the highest psychic level, same rank, compare attributes. Her message was utterly perplexing, sparking immediate and widespread discussion among the group. What's going on? Why look for the highest psychic level? Isn't that just searching for the top combatant in the entire server? Can't we just check the leaderboards? Leaderboards are based on fleet construction progress. While related to personal combat prowess, they're not a reliable reference. Seriously? That kind of information is quite private. It shouldn't be shared publicly. Upon seeing this response, Gushi acknowledged the validity of the point and promptly revised her statement. Gushi, seeking individuals with S-rank psychic level, same rank, compare attributes. Using herself as a benchmark, she commenced her search. Throughout her journey, fortune had favored her, and labor resources were abundant, yet she refused to believe she was the sole beneficiary of such luck. She was unique, but not the only one of her kind. S-rank? Is this what defines a master? Casually mentioning S-rank. If you're bold enough to ask for S-rank, why not SS rank? Who knows, someone might even have SSS rank through exploits. I'm A rank and was about to speak up, but Gushi, your standards are too high. What exactly are you aiming for? Gushi glanced at this username and swiftly established a group named Combat Explosion Squad, inviting the A-rank psychic individual inside. Gradually, several others revealed their A-rank status, and Gushi methodically added each one to the group. Observing the nearly 10 members in the private group, Gushi felt a wave of concern. Although she understood that humanity's time in this world had been brief, she hadn't anticipated so few reaching A rank. How could humanity possibly stand tall against the Deep Sea clan under these circumstances? Combat Explosion Squad, Gushi, what do you really mean by this? Li Ruoyang, you're not planning something troublesome, are you? Under the group's inquiries, Gushi slowly relayed her message. Gushi, I have an opportunity here, but it's for only one person, the individual with the highest combat prowess. There is no reward involved. If anyone knows of others with high combat ratings, please recommend them. What kind of opportunity? Can you clarify? This time, Gushi did not withhold information, but openly disclosed it. She had mentioned it earlier in the region 2333 group, because the chat there moved too rapidly. Gushi, it's a spot for the Deep Sea Clan Conference. I have one additional. As soon as Gushi's message went out, the Combat Explosion Squad erupted in chaos. What? The Deep Sea Clan Conference? Are you sure we're not walking to our deaths, becoming their slaves? I'm not going. It's far too dangerous. I won't go either. Everyone knows the Deep Sea Clan's minimum rank is A, and if it's a full assembly of their kind, there must be quite a few SS-level beings. What will we be going for? To become a laughingstock for the Deep Sea Clan? Seeing everyone's enthusiastic attitude, Gushi felt a pang of discomfort. Despite the strong opposition, no one withdrew from the Force Explosion group. Gradually, more A-level individuals were drawn into the group, eventually surpassing 100 members. Yet among these 100, not a single one was S-rank. Moreover, news of Gushi's plan to select the highest combatant to attend the Deep Sea Clan meeting spread throughout Area 2333, with the vast majority skeptical of its success. Is reaching S-rank so difficult? Is it that hard to find just one person? Gushi sighed and confided in AIC. AIC replied, it's not impossible. With effort and no racial mental limits, one can achieve it. But time is short. To reach S rank requires challenges, opportunities, luck, and more all converging. After a rare moment of hesitation, AIC added, and the chosen one must possess courage. Resigned, Gushi closed the chat panel and stood up. There's no use rushing this, especially since the C Wraith's invitation hasn't arrived yet. I'll focus on boosting my own mental power to S rank first. I estimate I'll reach it by tomorrow. AIC nodded in agreement. Indeed, strength is the key to survival in the ocean. Just then, Gushi's friend notification chimed. She had set specific alerts for only a few people. Who could it be? She wondered. Chapter 289. Charge on. S-rank mental power Gu. She opened a friend interface to find a message from Lauren. Puzzled, she checked the panel and read Lauren's words. I'm S-rank. Gushi stared at the S for a long moment before snapping back to reality. She had just assumed there were no S-rank individuals, and now the first one to appear was her own friend. This dramatic turn of events was hard to digest. As she stood dazed, another message from Lauren came through. I heard you're heading to the Deep Sea Clan meeting. I've been pushing myself these past few days to train my mental power and just reached S-rank. Am I too late? Reading this, Gushi could only mentally applaud Lauren. Here was someone who took action. Instead of debating whether to go or not, they worked hard to enhance their abilities and seize the initiative. Immediately, Gushi replied swiftly, not late at all. I've been waiting for you. They skipped the formalities, and Gushi finalized the selection on the spot. With the candidate decided, it was time to proceed with the next steps. After a brief exchange with Lauren, Gushi switched to the regional channel and the Force Explosion group to announce the confirmed participant. Then, ignoring any further comments, she dove straight into the tasks at hand. Ace noticed her improved mood as she stepped out of the room, deducing that the matter she had been anticipating had made significant progress. "What's next, Pirulu?" Ace inquired. "First, elevate my spiritual power to S rank. Then check if the invitation has arrived." Gushi replied cheerfully. Ace cast a calm glance at her. "Pirulu, I thought you were planning to sail to a fellow kin's place." Gushi paused, then exclaimed in surprise, "Am I insane? How exorbitant are the abyss crystals? Isn't there the sea wraiths gathering? I'll simply mail it to Lauren then. Why bother making the trip myself?" Ace found her reasoning quite sound and nodded in agreement. "All right. You and Flamescale handle the ship's affairs. I need to focus on breaking through." With that, Gushi retreated to her room, this time shutting the door behind her. Left outside, Ace gazed serenely at the closed door for a few moments before turning away. Gushi settled into a comfortable reclining position, preparing to advance her spiritual power. She was just a short training session away from reaching S rank, and, at the critical juncture, she intended to push through in one go. Taking a deep breath, she closed her eyes and delved into her spiritual sea. Concentrating intently, she drew her spiritual energy inward, striving to perceive and connect with that inner realm. In her mind's eye, she envisioned a tranquil lake, its surface mirror-like, reflecting the sky and surrounding scenery. She visualized her spiritual power as a faint ripple, gently disturbing the placid surface to plunge into the depths below. Gradually, she sensed streams of spiritual energy trickling like tiny brooks, flowing steadily into her spiritual sea, one after another, vying to fill its expanse. As these rivulets continued to pour in, her spiritual sea began to transform, its boundaries slowly expanding, rendering the already vast domain even more immense. Suddenly, turmoil erupted within. Virtual scenes flashed rapidly, raging storms, towering waves, and crackling lightning. These successive calamities churned her spiritual sea into chaos. Reclining, Gushi furrowed her brow slightly, her eyelids tightly shut, beads of sweat forming on her forehead. Her face grew pale and weak, her head swaying erratically. Ace, who had been fishing, abruptly sensed the instability of her spiritual energy and thought, "This is bad." He swiftly rose and teleported to her door. Flamescale hurried over as well, glancing at Ace guarding the entrance but refraining from barging in. Other fish gathered outside, all cheering Gushi on. "Squeak, what's wrong with her?" "Pirulu, I forgot. It's the virus season now. This virus can trigger spiritual upheavals. She's been exposed to quite a bit of it, though not infected. It might cause trouble during her advancement." "Shoo, why mention it only now? What do we do?" The other fish were equally anxious, circling around AC, eagerly awaiting his response. "Plop, plop. Wait." Yinlin snorted disdainfully, turning to settle at the adjacent dining table. The rest of the fish followed suit, abandoning their tasks to gather there, all holding their breath for Gushi's safety. Meanwhile, within the sea of her consciousness, Gushi was darting and dodging erratically. Logically, advancing one's spiritual power within the confines of one's race should be a straightforward process. Yet, why was her own spiritual energy so tumultuous? Could it be that humanity's limit lies below the S rank? Gushi murmured to herself, but swiftly she dismissed the notion. No, that can't be right. If that were the case, how could Lauren have reached S rank? There must be another reason. Since it was so unruly, she resolved to tame it piece by piece. Steadying her resolve, Gushi began to meticulously observe the chaotic manifestations caused by these wild spiritual forces. Though they appeared disorderly, subtle patterns emerged, akin to gusts of wind in a storm, seemingly random, yet flowing along the divide between stable and turbulent spiritual energies. Using her core spiritual power, Gushi formed a protective shield, allowing her to navigate the turbulent mental sea unscathed. With this barrier, she deflected the direct assaults of the violent energies, safeguarding her consciousness from being utterly dispersed. Focusing intently, she attempted to capture the smaller streams of rampant spiritual force. As a relatively feeble surge approached her shield, she swiftly extended spiritual tendrils, tightly coiling around it, then manipulated her energy to draw the wild force inward. Once inside the shield, she projected images of tranquility and harmony into her mind, striving to imbue the ferocious power with a sense of peace. Gradually, the once raging spiritual energy began to calm, its strength assimilating back into her own. It worked. Delighted, Gushi repeated the process. Capture, pull, soothe, assimilate. Each success brought a slight calm to her mental sea. and with every cycle, her own power grew stronger. However, as she subdued more and more of the wild energies, the remaining ones seemed to sense the threat. Uniting in response, several powerful streams converged into a colossal force, roaring like a furious dragon, charging toward Gushi. Chapter 290. Charge. S-rank spiritual power. 2. A jolt of surprise ran through Gushi. She hadn't realized her spiritual energy could possess such collective awareness. But no matter how united, weren't they all part of her own essence? In that case, she decided to test the modified version of the spiritual defense barrier she had recently developed. With swift precision, she reconfigured the defensive shield, morphing its form from a circular barrier into a conical spear, its sharp tip aimed directly at the colossal, raging force. Simultaneously, she drew upon the vast ocean of spiritual energy beneath her, channeling it to converge at the shield's apex, coalescing into a transparent, dragon-like entity of immense power. As the ferocious spiritual dragon surged closer, Gushi let out a resounding cry, unleashing the latent, untapped energies still brewing within her mental sea. The transparent dragon at the shield's tip lunged forward, clashing violently with the rampaging beast, erupting in a blinding flash of light. Upon the collision of the two spiritual dragons, Gushi was first struck by a tangible tremor that rippled from the depths of her consciousness. It felt as if a violent earthquake were shaking the very foundations of reality, with her mind serving as the quaking ground. This tremor carried a tearing sensation, threatening to uproot her awareness from the core of her spiritual ocean. Following swiftly, a tumultuous wave of energy crashed over her, akin to countless sharp needles piercing her consciousness. Each prick delivered a searing pain that resonated deep into her soul, igniting sparks of agony throughout her mental realm. Instinctively, Gushi clenched her jaw, a physical reflex mirrored in her spiritual state despite the intangible nature of the battle. She anchored her consciousness deeper into the spiritual sea, seeking solace from the torment inflicted by the impact. Rapidly, she marshaled the recently subdued spiritual forces, enveloping herself in layers of protective armor. As the rampaging energy began to coalesce once more, she erected another mental barrier. Though her physical body lay trembling, sweat beading on her forehead within the spiritual realm, her will burned like an unyielding flame, steadfastly resisting the engulfing force. Despite the relentless pressure from the chaotic energy, Gushi remained undeterred by its overwhelming facade. She focused intently, her gaze unwavering, scrutinizing every nuance of the turbulent force. Her consciousness delicately probed its periphery, moving like a gentle butterfly navigating a thorny thicket. Suddenly, her awareness brushed against something subtle, a discordant sensation that whispered into her mind. Intrigued, she delved deeper into this anomaly. Within the surging chaos, she detected areas where the flow of spiritual energy faltered, much like stones obstructing a river's current, creating hidden eddies behind them. A flaw found at last. Excitement gleaming in her eyes, Gushi seized upon these fissures, decisively infiltrating them with her own spiritual power. The invaded micro-fissures began to erode the very foundation of the rampaging force, gradually dismantling its core. As Gushi's consciousness continued to permeate, the immense and turbulent spiritual energy began to disintegrate. Seizing this opportunity, she once again employed her methods of capture, pulling, soothing, and assimilation, gradually taming the scattered forces. After a considerable passage of time, she finally subdued all the violent spiritual energies within her mental sea, which now returned to tranquility, appearing even more vast and profound than before. Slowly, she opened her eyes and unlatched her door to find her companions anxiously waiting outside, their faces lighting up with relief at her sight. "Puyulu, congratulations," one exclaimed, while another chirped, "PSHH, you scare me to death. I thought I'd lost my long-term meal ticket." And a third added, "Chirp chirp, I feel like crying. I'm so happy." Gushi responded with a mix of exasperation and affection, gently pushing away the enthusiastic fish-like beings that rushed toward her. Though her movements seemed somewhat rough, they were imbued with a deep fondness. Once she had steadied herself, she spoke rapidly, like a machine gun firing off responses to their overlapping chatter. "Thank you. And who taught you the term long-term meal ticket? Don't cry. If you feel like crying, go find more work to do. Keeping busy will keep your mind from wandering." Afterward, Gushi listened intently as AI detailed the perilous reasons behind her recent advancement, leaving her in silent contemplation as she stood there, her mind awash with myriad thoughts. With her safety assured, the group gradually dispersed, returning to their respective tasks. Gushi let out a long, deep sigh, releasing all the tension and stress from a recent ordeal. She felt profoundly grateful that her worst fears had not come to pass. Had humanity been permanently stuck at A level due to the constraints of the world's rules, it would have been disastrous. After taking a brief rest, she recalled that a package might have arrived and decided to check the invitation space. Returning to her room, she retrieved the invitation, infused it with her spiritual energy, and entered the dimensional realm. There, she immediately spotted the package lying quietly. She strode over quickly, picking up the invitation sent by Ghost. This time, there were 3 invitations in total, granting 3 slots for the meeting. She glanced over the cover of the invitation, then flipped it to the back to read the details. It specified that the meeting was scheduled in 10 days and noted that simply using the invitation would ensure smooth arrival at the venue. Accompanying the invitations was a letter, adorned with the emblems of Ghost and the coin creature. Perhaps in contrast to the peculiar coin creature, Gushi found the Ghost design to appear charmingly cartoonish. With a light chuckle, she focused on the letter, realizing it was addressed specifically to her. Opening it, her eyes swiftly scanned the contents, which primarily requested her to present on the virus situation and the skeleton deep sea tribe during the conference. Upon reading it, she couldn't help but let out a soft laugh before stepping out of the space. She summoned AC and handed him the conference invitation. AC gazed at Gushi with a puzzled expression, his eyes brimming with confusion. Peruru? For me? Gushi nodded. The Deep Sea Clan is still too perilous for us at the moment. With you there, I'll feel more at ease. Understanding dawned on AC, and he tucked the invitation away. Next, Gushi sent the invitation to Lauren, who promptly replied, confirming receipt and requesting she notify him before departing. With all tasks completed, Gushi felt an immense sense of liberation, her mind and body utterly relaxed. Tonight, we're having hot pot, she announced. All the fish heard. While they didn't dislike human food, they much preferred fish feed. The thought of mixing fish feed into the hot pot seemed as dreadful as tossing cake into it. A culinary disaster. The collective thought among the fish was a desperate plea. Please no. Chapter 291. The Abyssal Layer Treasure Hunt Plan aside, from Gushi's delight. The other fish found the hot pot meal hard to swallow. Fortunately, Gushi was reasonable and gifted each fish in the household 2 packs of fish feed. Except for those unable to board the ship, the rest gathered around the table, awaiting the octopus chef's preparation of the feed. Yinlin kept glancing between AC and Gushi. Feeling uneasy under the scrutiny, Gushi asked, "Why are you staring at me? What do you want to say?" Yinlin's eyes lit up, and he quickly responded, "Sure. My room is finished, but it's still missing some furniture." Mentioning furniture, he cautiously glanced at AC, thinking how tasteless it was that he used a wooden box as a bed. So, Gushi's voice drew his attention back. "Sure. I think I should go treasure hunting." "Treasure? To save money? For furniture or a spatial expansion?" Yinlin replied, "Sure. A spatial expansion. I haven't reverted to my original form in a long time, and my whole body feels stiff. I occasionally need to sleep in my true form." Upon hearing this, Gushi stroked her chin. She was about to agree, but realized Yinlin might not know the requirements for a custom spatial expansion and inquired, "Yinlin, do you know what's needed for a custom spatial expansion?" Yinlin shook his head blankly. "Sure. Treasure? Treasure is for selling to earn money. Buying furniture shouldn't be a problem for you, but for spatial expansion, only a custom one will meet your needs," Gushi explained. Yinlin pressed further, "So besides gold coins, what else is required?" "Still treasure, but not just any treasure. It must serve as a spatial medium, and the size of the space depends on the treasure used." Finding her explanation too abstract, Gushi continued, "You know the spatial area above the roof? That was customized using a treasure contributed by AC. It spans 2,000 square meters. At the time, I provided the materials, and the Sea Wraith handled the crafting, with a processing fee alone costing 20,000 gold coins." Yinlin listened, its mouth gaping wider and wider. It recalled purchasing Ariel for merely 6,000 gold coins, and when it had sold her before, it seemed to have only fetched around 20,000. Then, wouldn't selling myself not even cover the cost? AC swept a strand of hair, striking Yinlin. What a terrible analogy. Gushi watched them with amusement. AC is right. How could you think it could be bought with gold coins? Yinlin pouted. Didn't you say that? Gushi stared in shock. I meant customizing a space isn't simple. To make you aware of what to prepare. Not to make you feel you can't afford it, even by selling yourself. Oh, so that's it. Yinlin suddenly understood. Then I need to figure out how to gather those things. Where do you plan to find them? I want to go to the ocean's ultra-abyssal zone. Yinlin declared without hesitation. That's where treasures are dredged up. Hearing this, Gushi was taken aback. The ultra-abyssal zone is an extremely perilous place, and the game system hasn't even unlocked depths that far. Yinlin, you can't go there. You, an S rank, can't, but I'm SS rank and can. After saying this, Yinlin sneakily glanced at AC, adding, it's just a bit dangerous, that's all. AC wiped her mouth calmly, tearing apart Yinlin's excuse. For you, is it just a bit dangerous? I'd say it's very dangerous. Gushi looked back and forth between them. She hadn't been to the ultra-abyssal zone, but with depths below 10,000 meters and no deep-sea inhabitants, it must be fraught with perils. Even though Yinlin is SS rank, she still felt deeply concerned. Faced with doubt, stares, and worry from all sides, Yinlin finally conceded. All right, I won't go. No, you can go, but not to the ultra-abyssal zone. You can head to the abyssal zone instead. It's still dangerous, but safer than the ultra-abyssal. AC suddenly interjected. The abyssal zone? Right? I can go there. Though the treasures aren't as plentiful as in the ultra-abyssal, scavenging for junk isn't bad. Wait. Seeing the two fish seemingly set on their destination, Gushi abruptly halted them. If it's the abyssal zone, I'm coming too. No, we're all going together. Besides worrying the fish might get lost going too far, she herself wanted to explore. Even if they couldn't enter the core areas of the abyssal zone, wandering the outskirts should be fine. That's it. Let's go to the abyssal zone. Gushi stood up abruptly, nearly startling the little chubby balls who were eating. She suddenly remembered there weren't just her fish on the boat, but also the guest chubby balls. Before leaving, she needed to settle them properly. Turning to the chubby balls, she inquired, 0 to 4, we're preparing to head to the abyssal zone. What are your plans? 0. I want to go with you to hunt for treasures. 1. Precisely. Only by salvaging treasures can we acquire gold coins. 2. With gold coins, we can purchase goods from you. 3. After buying things, we'll feel more comfortable continuing to play here. 4. That way, we can enjoy more delicious treats and have fun with everyone. They spoke one after another, perfectly revealing their upcoming plans. Gushi, aren't you worried? 0. Not at all. We've received word from within the Abyssal Scale Clan that a deep-sea tribe assembly will be held soon, and I'll be attending. Gushi exclaimed in surprise. You? Representing the Abyssal Scale Clan? 0 swayed its body gently. Yes, and I can go with you then. Gushi, what about your invitation? How will it reach you? 0. The nearest Sea Phantom merchant convoy will deliver it to me via bird. Gushi glanced at the other little chubby spheres, all of them nodding in agreement. Suddenly, Gushi felt the vastness of the ocean wasn't so immense after all. Just then, she heard 0 say, look, the bird has arrived. Gushi followed 0's pointing direction and indeed saw a large bird soaring through the sky, eventually landing on the rooftop. At that moment, the crystal ice bird, out for a stroll, detected the presence of another avian and instantly grew alert. Spotting the newcomer perched on the roof, it flapped its wings vigorously, pecking at it in an attempt to drive it away. But the newly arrived bird was no pushover either, and the two immediately engaged in a fierce battle on the rooftop. Their back-and-forth pecking and wing-slapping sent meticulously maintained feathers flying in all directions. 0 cried out, ah! They're fighting. Gushi immediately dropped her bowl and chopsticks, dashing straight toward the 3rd floor. What are you waiting for? Hurry and stop them. Chapter 292. The future set sail. Gushi moved like a bolt of lightning, abandoning her meal and rushing headlong to the 3rd floor. The fish on the table exchanged bewildered glances, while the little chubby spheres erupted like firecrackers set ablaze. They're fighting. Let's go check it out. Wait for me. I'm coming. Truth be told, Flame Scale and Ice weren't keen on moving for such a trivial matter. But as the little spheres and octopuses departed one by one, leaving just the two of them, the atmosphere grew awkward, so they reluctantly trudged upstairs. Gushi, frantic with worry, burst onto the 3rd floor, only to be stunned by the scene before her eyes. The two large birds were locked in a heated battle, their conflict raging intensely. Unfortunately, her roof and garden bore the brunt of the chaos. The rooftop garden looked as if struck by a tornado, strewn with disheveled feathers everywhere. indicating the birds have been engaged in a fierce struggle for who knows how many rounds. The aftermath was truly devastating. At that moment, the crystal ice bird and its opponent flapped their wings wildly, the resulting gusts howling and wreaking havoc around them, causing numerous plants to sway and topple in the wind. Engrossed in the heat of battle, neither bird noticed Gushi's approach. With a fierce swipe of its claws, the ice crystal bird lunged at the foreign bird. Unyielding, the intruder twisted its body and wings in a powerful roll, sidestepping gracefully to evade the assault. Yet this evasion cost it its balance, sending it tumbling onto the rooftop. Its wings flapped uncontrollably, like two runaway propellers, thrashing up and down in desperation. The relentless flapping stirred a violent gust of air that erupted outward, howling like a tempest toward Gushi's location. Instantly, her clothes billowed noisily, and her hair whipped wildly in the wind, strands lashing her face and veiling her eyes like a dark curtain. Blinded momentarily, Gushi instinctively cast a psychic restraint, ensnaring the foreign bird firmly. The raging winds, deprived of their source, dissipated into nothingness. Just then, an invitation descended gracefully, spiraling through the air before settling gently at Gushi's feet. As she smoothed her tangled locks and picked up the letter, she brushed it off and spoke with a chilling calm. Had enough? Then cease this at once. Cackling, the ice crystal bird covered its eyes with its wings like a chastised child and retreated into its dimensional space. Meanwhile, the restrained foreign bird tumbled off the roof, landing on the platform with a dull thud. A few plump little spheres waddled over. Ling Ling exclaimed, "Gushi, you looked so terrifying just now. Are you all right?" After composing herself, Gushi handed over the invitation and replied, "I'm fine. No one could have foreseen this." Truthfully, she had been furious initially, but she reasoned that for the ice crystal bird, the intruder might have been a territorial threat, making its defense justified. Conversely, the foreign bird was merely delivering a message and acted in self-preservation when attacked. Since neither was at fault, what use was her anger? Fortunately, the plants suffered little harm, and the scattered debris could be cleaned up later. He trembled and asked, "Really?" Gushi affirmed, "Yes, if you feel guilty, help the octopus tidy this place." Pointing at the grounded foreign bird, she added, "It must clean up its own mess too, and I'll have the ice crystal bird join in shortly." By the time AIC and Yinlin arrived, the chaos had been resolved. Seizing the moment with everyone present, Gushi announced their immediate departure for the abyssal layer. She declared, "We'll sail by day and rest at night. During daylight, the sharks will remain in the aquatic space. Other sea creatures that can keep pace may stay outside. Those that cannot should enter the spatial realm." Learning from past overcrowding with the sharks, Gushi had since acquired several additional aquatic spaces. The sharks now reside within. Living normally, Gushi inquired, "Our speed matches the Shark King's pace. AC, at this rate, how much farther to the abyssal layer?" AC responded with a bubbly sound. "Wait a moment." He then began using his psychic abilities to scout the path. Shortly after, under everyone's gaze, he announced, at the Shark King's full speed, approaching the 6,000-meter depth, it would take approximately 78 days. Gushi was astonished. The Shark King at full throttle? AC confirmed with a bubbly hum, "Yes." Pushing to the limit would drain the Shark King significantly, but with nightly rest, it should be manageable. Upon hearing this, Gushi furrowed his brow. Manageable doesn't mean without risks. If the Shark King were to exhaust itself, it could lead to trouble. Let's have the Shark King enter the spatial realm as well. All marine creatures that can't board the ship should go there. We'll rely on the vessel's propulsion to advance at full speed. First, take inventory of the sharks and other sea beasts. If space is insufficient, inform me immediately. I'll procure more. Also, seize this opportunity to allow the marine creatures long submerged in the sea to level up. I prepared the sea beast pearls. AC, you oversee the arrangements. Gushi laid out several tasks, organizing the upcoming plans thoroughly. With a clear objective set, the future prepared to embark. For the initial voyage, AC took charge of navigation, heading directly to the engine room to commence the journey. The octopus, along with the chubby spheres and two birds, began tidying up. Meanwhile, Yinlin, Ariel, and the recently awakened Kaima were tasked with relocating the other fish into the aquatic spatial zones. Common fish first, followed by the sea beasts, kept in separate spaces to avoid disturbances. Although they managed to settle in, the Shark King's immense size caused crowding in the space, forcing Gushi to purchase a larger one at an auction to resolve the issue. With all preparations complete, they awaited departure. AC and the octopus monitored the control panel in the engine room, focused on the power core. On the deck, Yanlin, Ariel, Kaima, and the 5 chubby spheres lounge, sat, or played joyfully. The crystal birds perched on the roof, standing tall and proud, eagerly gazing into the distance. Gushi stood on the observation deck, eyes fixed intently on the ocean ahead. Is everyone ready? His psychic message reached each crew member. A unified ready echoed back. Set sail. With Gushi's resounding cry, the future headed towards the abyssal layer. This marked the vessel's first powered voyage, filling all with anticipation. AC manipulated the interface, activating the power core, which enveloped the entire ship in immense energy. Initially, it started slowly, the hull drifting forward leisurely, but as the abyssal crystal's output stabilized, the ship's velocity surged dramatically at an astonishing rate. The vessel jolted violently, then sliced through the sea like an arrow released from its bow. Chapter 293. A close call. Reaching the abyssal layer. The ship's prow cleaved the waters mercilessly, as if wielding a giant axe. On either side, towering walls of white water surged upward, resembling immense mountain peaks. These aqueous barriers thrashed and roared like countless galloping steeds, while myriad droplets scattered into the air like glistening diamonds. The future accelerated relentlessly. The sea winds it traversed were torn into turbulent streams, whistling sharply as they swept past the hull. A long, white wake trailed behind, sweeping across vast stretches of the ocean. Aboard, the fish and Gushi were tossed about chaotically, yet the ship's velocity showed no sign of abating. Yanlin struggled to maintain balance, gripping a nearby pillar with its fin-like hands, scales bristling under the gale, the excitement in its eyes swept away by the ferocious winds. Ariel, startled, revealed her fish tail, which flailed wildly as she fought for stability, her pink hair streaming straight back in the tempest. Kima lay nearly flattened against the deck, clinging tightly to the surface. The 5 chubby spheres were blown into a corner, huddling closely together into a ball to avoid being swept overboard. The ice crystal birds, no longer composed, abandoned their flapping efforts and retreated into their dimensional space. Gushi fared no better, standing on the 3rd level where the winds were even more savage. They felt like countless blades whipping through the air, lashing at her body. Her hair whipped wildly, striking her cheeks, forcing her to squint against the onslaught. Just then, a subtle chime reached her ears. Game prompt. Activate the ship's defensive shield. With no time for deliberation, she hastily confirmed. Instantly, nodes patterned across the future's hull, glowing with an ethereal blue light. The luminescence spread swiftly along preset pathways, weaving elegantly over the ship's surface. As it flowed, a transparent energy membrane unfurled from the bow, meeting and merging overhead to form a seamless dome enveloping the entire vessel. Once the shield was in place, the raging waters and howling winds were barred outside, crashing against it and stirring visible ripples of energy akin to stones cast into a placid lake. The world fell into tranquility. The fish rose, scattered, and regained their footing. Phew, we're steady now. I feared we'd capsize. That was far too turbulent, and the speed, utterly breathtaking. Gushi observed the crew regaining composure amidst their chatter. And it suddenly dawned on her that during the construction of the power core, the game had hinted that superior cores could significantly enhance speed. Yet, the propulsion system forged with abyssal crystals proved overwhelmingly potent. This velocity, she surmised, must have far exceeded Ace's expectations. At this pace, reaching the abyssal layer wouldn't take 7 or 8 days. She estimated the time could be halved. Fortunately, while reinstalling the defense systems, she had upgraded some components, greatly bolstering the future's defensive capabilities. Otherwise, the vessel might have been torn apart by the gales. Truly, excellence comes at a price. Activating the defense interface, Gushi noted the shield integrity had dwindled from an initial 100 to 99.98, steadily declining further. The defensive barrier, a consumable item, required constant replenishment of materials. She realized that such speed settings were a treacherous pitfall. Previously, she had meticulously selected high-quality materials for the system, but now, resigned to the rapid depletion, she resolved to use whatever was at hand, even scraps, to sustain it. Inside the engine room, Ace and the octopus, though spared the violent storms and howling winds that plagued the exterior, were not immune to the relentless turbulence. Ace stood firm and unshaken, but the octopus suffered, clinging tearfully to his leg in desperation. Only when the defense shield deployed did the creature cease its whimpering, belatedly realizing its audacious grip and reflexively retracting its tentacles in alarm. With the ship now in motion, Ace could not linger. He guided the octopus's tentacles toward the control panel, instructing Bubbles, take charge here. Maintain speed without faltering. If fuel runs low, fetch abyssal crystal fragments from the storage to replenish it. The octopus obediently placed 2 tentacles before its head, chirping in acknowledgement. Despite minor setbacks during launch, the Future sailed smoothly toward the abyssal layer. The vessel's speed surpassed Gu Shi's wildest estimates, arriving at the periphery in merely 2 days. On the 100th day of the maritime calendar, Ace anchored the Future at the edge of the abyssal sea, where depths plunged to approximately 6,000 meters. Standing in the third-floor garden, Gu Shi gazed at the somber, dark waters, her brow furrowed in confusion. This looks like any ordinary sea, she mused. Why is it called the abyssal layer? Ace, eyes fixed on the horizon, explained Bubbles, the peril of the abyssal layer lies not in its profound depths, but in its ever-shifting environment. Gu Shi questioned, didn't the previous seas change rapidly too? Is there something uniquely different here? Ace gave a subtle nod and summoned Ling Ling, directing it to conjure a massive block of ice in the air and hurl it into the distant ocean. No sooner had the ice chunk been hurled a short distance than the surrounding seawater seemed to ignite, its temperature soaring abruptly. Shortly after plunging into the ocean, the ice transformed into a wisp of white vapor, vanishing without a trace. Ling Ling was struck speechless with astonishment, while Gu Shi watched the scene in equal amazement, awaiting AIC's explanation. Pointing toward the water, AIC remarked, Peruru, this marks the first peril of the abyssal layer. Temperatures can shift unpredictably in an instant. After her initial shock, Gu Shi's expression softened into calm composure. However, she stated, the Future's hull has been refitted with temperature-resistant materials. So this seawater fluctuation should pose minimal risk and won't compromise the ship's integrity. A faint, almost imperceptible smile curled at the corner of AIC's lips as he responded. Peruru. Precisely, there's no need for concern on that front. Is there anything else? Gu Shi pressed on. As she spoke, she observed AIC channeling his psychic energy to conjure a small vortex in the distance. Yet, the moment it took shape, the surrounding waters surged toward it as if possessed of life, the vortex expanding at an alarming rate. Gesturing at the growing whirlpool on the surface, AIC explained, Peruru, this is the second danger, the uncontrollable nature of the currents. He paused before addressing Gu Shi again. Peru, even the slightest alteration can trigger widespread shifts in the flow. For ordinary sea creatures, this represents the greatest variable. The currents here are profoundly unstable. A minor eddy can swiftly morph into a colossal maelstrom capable of devouring everything, with directions shifting unpredictably, making it impossible to foresee the next movement. Yinlin nodded in agreement, taking over the explanation. Puxiao. Indeed, this phenomenon is even more pronounced in the ultra-abyssal zones. Only the largest sea beasts suffer lesser effects. Otherwise, creatures might be swept away without warning, let alone the deep-sea races. Puxiao. And there's worse. Beyond the abyssal layer, the seas interfere with psychic senses, growing more intense the deeper one ventures. If you doubt it, try extending your own psychic awareness to investigate. Chapter 294. Anomalous Detection. Gliding on the ice path, skeptical yet intrigued, Gu Shi extended her psychic energy. In the broader environment, such interference with psychic powers had previously occurred within the concealed space where AIC had once lain dormant, a site shrouded in world secrets and protected by cosmic laws that impeded psychic probes. Could this place be similar? Gu Shi unfurled her psychic senses like an invisible net, stretching them into the distance. After a few moments, she spoke slowly. Approximately 20 kilometers away, there's a faint, elusive energy fluctuation. It's quite peculiar. Upon hearing this, Yinlin stared at her in stunned disbelief. In its understanding, the abyssal layer's interference with psychic energy was exceptionally potent. For an S-class individual, detecting up to a kilometer was considered impressive, while 2 kilometers bordered on the unimaginable. Even with Gu Shi's extraordinary talent, the maximum range might be 5 kilometers. Yet here she was, claiming to sense something 20 kilometers away. Yinlin, in disbelief, also extended its psychic senses, attempting to locate the energy fluctuation Gushi had mentioned. Yet as soon as its mental power unfurled, it felt as though sinking into a viscous swamp, advancing with immense difficulty. Despite exerting all its strength, it found it could only probe up to about 10 kilometers, far short of the 20-kilometer range Gushi had described. A mix of confusion, disbelief, and shock painted Yinlin's expression as it turned to Gushi and exclaimed, "Shuh! How can you, an S rank, detect farther than I can? How did you manage that? Why am I limited to such a short distance while you perceive so much farther?" Gushi, recalling the events at the heart of the island, felt it was beyond words and simply shook her head nonchalantly. "It just happened that way. Perhaps I've had some extraordinary encounter that made me stronger than you. But now isn't the time to dwell on this. That energy fluctuation might hide treasures, and we need to find a way to approach it." Yinlin remained somewhat skeptical of Gushi's words, so it pivoted to AC and asked, "Sure, can you check if it's safe for us to go there?" Upon hearing Yinlin's query and receiving a confirming glance from Gushi, AC also extended its psychic senses to investigate the area of the energy fluctuation. After a moment, AC withdrew its senses and announced to the group, "Pravlyu, indeed. There's a unique energy fluctuation there, and no particularly dangerous conditions are apparent in the vicinity." Gushi, upon hearing AC's report, cast a slightly triumphant look at Yinlin, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Then let's set off right away." "Sure, but there are turbulent currents. They're very dangerous. I'm not sure if the future can withstand them." Yinlin protested. "I never said we'd take the ship," Gushi retorted with a light glance. "The distance to the energy zone isn't far. We'll fly over." With that, Gushi began to assign roles. "The ice crystal bird can carry all of you easily. I have my own abilities, so no worries." "Sure. No, I won't do it." Yinlin objected. "Oh, I almost forgot you have acrophobia," Gushi recalled. "In that case, AC, create an aerial ice path here. That should solve the problem, right?" Seeing that AC also endorsed Gushi's plan, Yinlin nodded reluctantly. "Sure. All right. Since you all think it's feasible, let's proceed as suggested." Under Gushi's direction, AC immediately sprang into action. It released its psychic energy, sending a vast wave of mental power toward the direction of the energy fluctuation. A straight ice beam formed low in the sky, extending rapidly over the sea's surface, with an ice path materializing swiftly along it, stretching toward the target area. In the blink of an eye, the ice path was fully constructed. AC's speed moved Yinlin to near tears. "Sure, why can't I be made of ice? If I were, I could build my own way there," Yinlin lamented. "Pravlyu, if you prefer, you could ignite a fiery path and follow the flames," AC quipped in response. AC's casual remark drew a light laugh from Gushi, who noticed that since Yinlin's arrival, AC had become noticeably more talkative. Seeing the chubby little orbs already positioned on the icy path, Gushi urged them on. "Let's move quickly. It's getting dark. We're just scouting today, and we'll explore further tomorrow." Yinlin hurriedly scrambled onto the ice, trailing behind the small orbs. Gushi, stepping on his sharp spikes, glided effortlessly across the frozen surface. Her speed was astonishing, like a bolt of lightning flashing by, and in the blink of an eye, she overtook the fish ahead. The fish struggled to advance on the ice, chasing each other frantically, but unable to match Gushi's pace, watching helplessly as she sped farther away. Yinlin shook off the little orb tugging at its tail, staring in amazement at Gushi's vanished form. "Uft, how is she so fast? Is she still S rank?" Lingling tugged hard on Yinlin's tail, replying, "We're all lined up. Hurry up. You're SS rank. You must be much faster than us." Yi chimed in, "Exactly. This way will save a lot of time." Yinlin tried to pull them along, but they wouldn't budge. "Uft, what's wrong with you? Don't you love skating? This is the perfect spot." Era retorted confidently, "We're on serious business now, not playing around." In the midst of the tug-of-war, the fish's progress slowed even more. AC, watching from behind, couldn't help but sigh. Then, he crafted a model resembling a fire element cannon and launched it. The fish shot forward joyfully on an icy rocket. The little orbs, being deep-sea creatures adept at manipulating ice, were unfazed by the cold, but Yinlin, a fire-controlling sea beast, was left shivering and grimacing from the intense psychic ice blast. "Ah, so cold, cold, cold. If you just ignite a flame, you'll be fine. You could have launched yourself, you know. If you're chilly, light a fire to warm up." AC's voice reached Yinlin long after the fish had moved ahead, prompting an urge to curse. "Uft, why didn't you say so earlier? All right, stop complaining. Lingling wanted to cover its head, but couldn't due to holding onto Yinlin's tail. The icy rocket proved incredibly swift, and they soon caught up with Gushi. She watched in surprise as a group of fish zipped past her, then turned to AC with a puzzled look. What happened to them? Uffed. I made an ice cannon and launched them forward. Gushi was left speechless by his whimsical idea. After a moment, she asked, won't they get washed out to sea? Her worries quickly dissipated upon hearing AC explain that he had erected a thick barrier at the path's end, so the fish would merely bump into it. Uffed. SS-rank sea beasts have tough hides. They won't get hurt. The little orbs will be fine too, with Yinlin blocking the way. See, what a perfectly arranged plan. Gushi let out a silent sigh and cast a resigned glance at him before ultimately yielding to his decision. However, she soon realized that Ace's idea was indeed ill-advised. Chapter 295. Energy Rift. As Gushi and Ace approached their destination, her attention was abruptly captured by several indistinct shapes on the icy surface. Upon closer inspection, she discerned that they were flattened pancakes sprawled across the ice. Hastily halting her spiked footwear, she leaped down and drew nearer, only to discover that these pancakes were, in fact, the fish companions who had arrived ahead. They lay pitifully flattened against the frosty ground, a heart-wrenching sight. Amidst the stark whiteness, a few crimson scales embedded in the ice wall stood out vividly. Instantly familiar to Gushi, they unmistakably belonged to Flame Scale. Though it was Flame Scale who had collided with the wall, an inexplicable chill ran down her spine, as if she herself had crashed into the icy barrier. Shivering slightly, Gushi hurried over in quick, small steps, gently assisting each fallen fish to their feet, saving Flame Scale for last. With deep concern etched on her face, she inquired, "Are you all right?" Flame Scale struggled laboriously to rise, then trudged wordlessly and dazedly toward the ice wall to retrieve its scattered scales. Its disheveled and cautious demeanor struck Gushi as profoundly tragic, reminiscent of a soul ravaged by catastrophe. Unable to contain herself, Gushi burst into soft laughter at the pitiable sight. Hearing this, Flame Scale emitted a disgruntled pfft and retorted, "It's not funny at all. It's all Ace's fault." Shooting a fierce glare at Ace, who stood by calmly as if observing a spectacle, Gushi quickly stifled her amusement and soothed. All right. Let's focus on examining the energy fluctuations ahead." Turning to Ace, she instructed him to dismantle the ice wall. With a mere thought from Ace, the towering barrier that had obstructed the fish vanished instantly. The group pressed onward, and before long, an overwhelming force assailed them, palpable even without employing psychic energy. Gushi grew vigilant, extending her psychic senses once more. Abruptly, her mental probe encountered an invisible barrier, rebounding sharply. Frowning, she murmured, "There seems to be something here blocking our approach." Flame Scale attempted to breach the barrier with its own power, but remained immovable. "Uffed. What do we do now?" it exclaimed. Ace made the final attempt. Though capable of forcibly shattering the barrier, he risked destroying whatever it concealed. He promptly withdrew his psychic energy and, seeing all eyes upon him, advised Prup, "It's best not to force our way through. When brute force fails, a subtler approach is warranted." Gushi once again extended her psychic energy, synchronizing it with the rhythmic fluctuations of the ambient energy. Motionless with eyes closed, she appeared deeply immersed, prompting Yinlin to inquire. But AC gently restrained him. Concentrating intently, Gushi gradually perceived that these energy waves seemed to convey a hidden message. After a moment, she lifted her head and declared, "I believe this barrier requires a specific method to unlock, likely tied to the patterns of these energy oscillations." The gathered fish exchanged uncertain glances, awaiting her next words. After a brief contemplation, Gushi added, "Let me observe the variations in these energy waves more closely." With that, she devoted her full attention to sensing the pulsating energy. Yinlin, AC, and the little puffballs did not remain idle either. They each unfurled their own psychic senses to assist. Every additional effort increased their chances of success. As time slipped by, suddenly, Gushi's eyes snapped open in revelation, and she exclaimed with delight, "I've found it." The frequency of these energy waves exhibits a faint interruption at regular intervals. We must seize that moment to breach the barrier. Upon hearing her words, the fish drew nearer. Yinlin, excitedly, tucked a fallen scale into his pocket, adopting a ready stance. "Uffed. Then let's prepare quickly," he chirped. After a moment's thought, Gushi checked the time and decided it would be advantageous to dismantle the barrier that very day. She guided the others to detect the gaps in the energy waves. Just as they awaited the next interruption, the ice passage began to tremble violently, as if a massive force was weaving back and forth beneath it. "Everyone, be careful," Gushi shouted urgently. They all clung tightly to the icy surface, those with hands digging into crevices, others pressing their bodies flat against the ice, fearing a misstep that might plunge them into the sea. Though they managed to stabilize temporarily, the shaking intensified relentlessly. Even though Gushi knew the passage wouldn't collapse, the violent tremors threatened to toss them all into the water. At that critical juncture, AC sprang into action. He swiftly unleashed his psychic energy, instantly enveloping the entire ice passage. Under the embrace of his power, railings rapidly formed along the edges, and as more energy infused the structure, the fierce vibrations gradually subsided. In no time, the passage ceased its shaking, hanging steadily in midair. Gushi breathed a sigh of relief, once again marveling at the prowess of an SSS rank ability. Although the instability of the ice passage was resolved, the energy surging through the water remained unaddressed. Steadying herself, Gushi pondered a solution to this energy disturbance, lest it lead to unforeseen dangers. She released her psychic energy once more, this time with heightened caution and focus. Her control over psychic forces had always been meticulous, and after mending the shattered key, her mastery had ascended to new heights. Slowly, her psychic tendrils probed toward the immense energy weaving through the water. She meticulously attuned herself to the rhythm of the energy fluctuations, seeking out the previously discovered energy fissures. AC remained silent, releasing a wisp of spiritual energy to assist Gushi from aside. The little chubby spheres wished to join in, but this time, it was Yinlin who restrained them. Two streams of spiritual energy intertwined like an intricate net, scouring the waters beneath the icy passage. Suddenly, Gushi's eyes lit up. She had grasped it, though the fissure appeared for an exceedingly brief moment. Vanishing in a flash, she had memorized the pattern of its emergence. "I found a way," Gushi exclaimed. "We need to strike it with opposing energy the moment the fissure appears, disrupting its trajectory. This might just halt its continued passage beneath the ice." Though AC couldn't fully comprehend her words, he trusted Gushi's judgment. Thus, he adjusted his spiritual energy to the state she described, awaiting the opportune moment. Gushi focused intently on the energy stream, and as the fissure reappeared in an instant, she and AC simultaneously unleashed their spiritual forces, assaulting the energy at the fissure. The two spiritual energies plunged into the energy gap together. The once smooth energy flow, as if abruptly interrupted in its rhythm, began to grow chaotic. The energy in the water seemed greatly disturbed, scattering wildly in all directions. Yet, Gushi and AC did not relent. AC coordinated with Gushi, continuously outputting spiritual energy and relentlessly assailing the turbulent force. Chapter 296, The Fusion of Ice and Fire. The emergence of the passage under the onslaught of Gushi and AC's spiritual energies. The power chisel beneath the ice passage grew increasingly feeble, soon vanishing without a trace. Gradually, the surrounding waters returned to tranquility, leaving only faint, almost imperceptible ripples gently undulating. These ripples, they should be harmless, right? She murmured under her breath, her eyes fixed unwaveringly on the rippling sea surface. Though they appeared to be ordinary ripples, who could tell if they concealed hidden dangers? After all, AC had already demonstrated that chaotic currents in the sea could originate from tiny vortices. Blub blub. There's no turbulence now, so it should be fine. However, it would be wiser to probe further with spiritual energy for assurance. AC cautiously advised upon hearing Gushi's mutterings. Gushi nodded, turning her gaze back to the ripples on the sea surface, not daring to relax her vigilance in the slightest. She then released her spiritual energy once more, probing the gear beneath the ripples. She had only descended a short distance when her spiritual sense brushed against something. Immediately, a strange and peculiar sensation transmitted back to her. "No, something feels off." Gushi's expression instantly turned grave, her voice tinged with seriousness. "Phew, could there be more than just energy fluctuations?" Yinlin stretched its neck, eyes locked intently on the water's surface. Yinlin's beak, reminiscent of a crow's, had barely uttered the words when the previously calm ripples, as if gone mad. abruptly began to swirl violently. In an instant, tiny whirlpools began to form, spinning faster and faster as the roaring sound of swirling water grew increasingly deafening. The surrounding sea seemed ensnared in a colossal catastrophe, helplessly drawn into the vortexes until the small eddies coalesced into a massive whirlpool, generating a formidable pull. "Oh no, AC! Yinlin, protect everyone!" Gushi's voice sharpened with urgency as she shouted. Then, without hesitation, she dashed toward the direction of the chubby spheres. Hearing Gushi's cry, the little chubby spheres panicked, their plump bodies scrambling frantically across the icy surface in a desperate attempt to retreat. Yet, the whirlpool's suction was too powerful, making it impossible for the A-level spiritual beings to maintain their footing. Suddenly, the pull intensified dramatically, seizing the small sphere air and dragging it swiftly toward the vortex's core. Gushi's eyes widened in alarm. Air fought with all its might against the overwhelming force, its fin-like appendages scratching desperately at the ice, leaving faint trails of blood that stained the surface starkly. Like a helpless puppet, air was flung uncontrollably against an icy barrier, emitting a dull thud upon impact, while the other spheres wailed in terror. Unwilling to let its prey escape, the whirlpool amplified its attraction, tightening its grip like an unyielding hand, drawing the surrounding waters into a frenzied rush toward the center. Air! The chubby spheres shrieked in panic, surging forward to aid their companion, only to be halted by Yinlin, who heeded Gushi's command. By then, not just air, but two other A-level spheres teetered on the brink of danger. Witnessing their struggle, Yinlin expanded its form, its tail enlarging to encircle the little ones, shielding them from the relentless suction. Meanwhile, AC reacted swiftly to Gushi's directive. With a steely gaze, he unleashed a surge of potent spiritual energy that instantly enveloped the mysterious force. A layer of crystalline ice spread rapidly, freezing the suction in place within moments, and the turbulent waters around them paused as if time had halted. Seizing the opportunity, Gushi's eyes narrowed as she called out to Yinlin. Yinlin, unleash the aquatic fire into the vortex's center. Without delay, Yinlin opened its maw, spewing forth a torrent of blazing flames that ignited upon contact with the water. The sea sizzled and steamed, white vapor rising as the inferno raged within the depths. Yinlin retrieved the fallen scale, her gaze sharpening as she cast it into the aquatic flames. The moment the scale merged with the fire, the blaze surged as if empowered, its hue shifting from azure purple to a near-violet intensity, radiating a brilliant glow. The frozen suction allowed Yinlin to manipulate the aquatic fire's position, guiding it swiftly toward the vortex's core. With a deafening roar that shook the seas, save for the icy path beneath their feet, immense shockwaves rippled outward, thrusting the surrounding waters into towering waves. AC seized the moment, freezing the cresting swells into solid walls of ice. The sudden ice barriers obscured their view, prompting Gushi to forego mental probing and instead soar to the peak of a frozen wave to survey the scene. Several trembling puffballs pulled Ara to safety. Huddling beneath Yinlin's tail while keeping a wary eye on Gushi. From her vantage point, Gushi peered downward, observing the vortex still churning fiercely, showing no signs of dissipation. Yet, at its center, the seawater had been violently evacuated, revealing a circular void where a massive black hole rotated slowly, emanating an eerie, cold luminescence. The hole seemed to harbor countless watching eyes in the darkness, exuding a spine-chilling aura. An overwhelming suction, stronger than before, poured forth incessantly from the abyss. At the hole's periphery, the water twisted grotesquely, contorted by some immense force. What should have been smooth currents now surged madly toward the void, only to be shattered into fine spray by an invisible power at the edge, then mercilessly drawn into the darkness. Noticing du 11 prolonge d'absence, AC ascended to join her on the wave's crest. Gushi, her eyes fixed on the enigmatic black hole, gestured toward it with a furrowed brow and inquired, AC, do you know what that is? AC gave an almost imperceptible nod. Pulilu, I sensed it when the suction first appeared. This must be a sea throat. A sea throat? Pulilu, I've only heard tales, never ventured there. What do you think? Shall we go? At AC's query, Gushi chuckled lightly. Go. Of course we go. If you can freeze this suction, why not take the risk? Unsurprised by her resolve, AC immediately unleashed his formidable psychic energy. His pupils shimmered with a blue light as his mental power surged like a tidal wave, sweeping toward the area around the abyss. In an instant, a frigid aura rapidly spread, freezing the seawater in its path. Within the blink of an eye, the entire expanse near the cave entrance was encased in ice. The once pulling force now manifested as thick, crystalline pillars, preserved as icy sculptures before Gushi's eyes. She gazed intently at these frozen forms, where faint traces of energy still shimmered upon their surfaces. Only then did she fully grasp the sheer intensity of the suction that had emanated from the dark abyss. Chapter 297. Entering the cave, although preparations for entry were complete, the timing was not opportune for exploration. Gushi cast a deep, lingering look at the enigmatic wave crest before descending gracefully, stepping lightly upon its spikes. Mid-air, she gestured to AC, signaling him to dismantle the colossal wave of ice. AC understood immediately, and under his command, the towering ice wall crumbled swiftly, shattering into fragments that scattered like stardust across the surroundings. With the barrier removed, the frozen sea and the unshielded black hole lay exposed before Yanlin and the chubby spheres. Even the subtle chill radiating from the ice could not mask the mysterious and perilous aura exuding from the abyss. At that moment, the black hole resembled a monstrous beast, jaws agape as if ready to devour prey, silently awaiting its chance. Merely gazing upon the entrance caused unease to surge like a tide within the little spheres, who huddled closely together, their bodies trembling faintly. Observing this, Gushi spoke with a grave expression. You have all witnessed the dangers lurking here. Today, we shall retreat. Upon returning, reflect carefully. If you still insist on accompanying us tomorrow, you may do so. However, be aware that our venture into the cave will not guarantee constant protection for you. The chubby spheres exchanged hesitant, fearful glances, shrinking further into themselves. The sole exception was Lingling, who, despite her fear, was more consumed by worry, not only for her own inadequacies as an S-level with feeble strength, but also for the risk of holding others back. By now, tranquility had returned to the surroundings. Yanlin slowly uncoiled its tail, watching the little spheres with a complex mix of emotions. Though they often filled the ship with boisterous clamor, their lively spirits had infused the vessel with joy. Yanlin genuinely regarded them as its own, and the thought of them facing peril here was unbearable. Hearing Gushi's words, Yanlin nodded emphatically, emitting a soft pshh. Yes, yes. Think it over carefully. The once cheerful atmosphere of their arrival had vanished, replaced by a heavy-hearted silence as the group, human and fish alike, made their way back to the future in solemn contemplation. After a restful night, it was the 101st day on the sea calendar. Early in the morning, Gushi gathered AC and Yanlin for departure. The dawn's sunlight danced upon the ocean surface, glittering brilliantly, with no trace of yesterday's turbulent waves in sight. Before setting off, Gushi scanned her surroundings and found no sign of the chubby puffballs. She surmised they must have been deterred by the dangers of yesterday's black hole and decided not to join. Gushi, accompanied by AC and Yanlin, proceeded toward the cave. As they reached the end of the icy path, her eyes widened in astonishment, and her steps involuntarily halted. There stood Lingling, solitary and resolute at the path's terminus. Its diminutive form appeared even more insignificant against the vast expanse, yet an unwavering determination radiated from it like a flickering flame. Gushi had never expected to encounter Lingling here, her face a canvas of surprise and disbelief, taking a moment to regain composure. Lingling, what are you doing here? If you intended to come, why not wait for us on the deck? Lingling lifted its head, round eyes fixed on Gushi, and declared firmly on the deck. I could see ч10 still hesitating. I feared lingering there would sway my resolve. I know it's perilous inside. Perhaps I'll hold everyone back or even perish. To claim I'm unafraid would be false, but one cannot live in fear forever. I refuse to hide in the shadows for a lifetime. Even if misfortune befalls me, I'll have lived without regrets. I've spoken with ч10, and they understand. Gushi observed its upright, steadfast posture for a moment before crouching slightly to meet its gaze. All right, let's go. Unexpectedly, AC cast a profound glance at Lingling, while even Yanlin regarded it with newfound respect. Little puffball, no need to worry. I'll protect you, Yanlin proclaimed grandly. attempting to sling an arm around Lingling, but realizing its height made it impossible. Embarrassed, it withdrew its fin and instead wrapped its tail around the small creature. Following Gu, Shi, and AC toward the cave, the group advanced, finding the entrance barricaded by chaotic, thick suction ice rods. Gu Shi employed her object manipulation to clear them away, and in a stroke of inspiration, stored the rods in her backpack. Peering into the cave's mouth, she saw an abyssal drop below, yet by now there was no need to descend via free fall as in the past. After brief contemplation, Gu Shi instructed AC, create 3 ice platforms, just large enough for us to stand on. Upon receiving the order, AC swiftly gestured, and the surrounding moisture condensed into 3 appropriately sized ice surfaces in an instant. Gu Shi then used her manipulation to lift the platforms, suspending them steadily in the air. She beckoned to the others, come, step on. Breaking from her habit of treading on spikes, she led by example, boarding one of the platforms. AC followed closely, while Yinlin, with Lingling in tow, took the last one. Let's move out. Yinlin ignited a spark, raising its fin to encircle each platform with a protective ring of flames. After the group stood upon the floating ice platform, Gu Shi concentrated her efforts to maneuver it swiftly into the cavern. Despite the enhancement from Yinlin's flames, the surrounding air grew increasingly frigid. Uncomfortable with the dropping temperature, Yinlin enveloped both itself and Gu Shi's vicinity with a ring of fire. What was once a faint glow now illuminated brightly, revealing subtle anomalies on the cave walls. Wait, what was that on the walls? As the ice descended further, Gu Shi noticed numerous peculiar symbols and patterns etched into the stone. She halted the platform, guiding it closer to inspect the markings. To her astonishment, she recognized them as identical to those she had seen on certain auction items. Examining them closely, Gu Shi exclaimed in surprise to the others. These appear to be the script and imagery of the strange creatures depicted on the gold coins. Yinlin, too, made the discovery and burst out excitedly. Shu, how about one here, too? I see the gold coin monster. I knew coming here was right. There must be treasures hidden within. Yinlin, proceed with caution, Gu Shi admonished gravely. With that, she resumed controlling the descent of the ice platform. As they neared the ground, the platform settled gently, and Gu Shi leaped off first, followed closely by AC, Yinlin, and Lingling. They found themselves in an enclosed chamber with no apparent exits. Gu Shi warily scanned the surroundings, sensing a mysterious energy flowing through the space. She warned the group, there's an odd energy circulating here. Everyone stay alert and avoid using psychic abilities for now. Let's search for an exit. Then, she led AC in exploring the nearby walls. Unable to contain its excitement, Yinlin's eyes gleamed as it dashed eagerly in one direction. Yinlin, be careful. Gu Shi called out urgently, but the creature had already raced ahead. Sighing and shaking her head, she had no choice but to follow with AC and Lingling in pursuit. Chapter 298. Exploration. Gu Shi and AC caught up to find Yinlin and Lingling standing transfixed before a wall. Following their gaze, she discerned a phantom of a gold coin creature emerging on the surface. Approaching it, she noticed that the Tutus eye area appeared slightly recessed, resembling a slot perfectly sized for a gold coin. Clearly, this was what had captivated Yinlin and Lingling. After a moment's thought, Gu Shi retrieved a gold coin from her pack and inserted it into the depression. The coin fit snugly, embedding itself into the wall. Suddenly, the wall trembled lightly, and a soft radiance emanated from around the tomb, spreading gradually. The coin formed, I dissolved into the tutung, transforming the once blurred image into a vivid, clear depiction. This luminous tutung, reminiscent of a gluttonous beast, began voraciously absorbing the ambient energy drifting through the space. As energy continued to pour in, a dazzling radiance began to shimmer forth. The brilliance was akin to the sun breaking through dense clouds, momentarily blinding everyone present with its intensity. Encased in this luminous aura, the totem gradually detached from the wall. It was massive, approximately 3 meters in size, hovering silently in midair, neither aggressive nor responsive. Observing its stillness, Gu Shi pondered her next move. The totem's emergence had been triggered by gold coin she had offered. Could it be that further action required another coin? Though it was mere speculation. She resolved to test the theory, hoping that another gold piece might elicit a change. Retrieving a second coin from her pack, Gu Shi cautiously approached the totem. I see. Yinlin and Lingling watched her every move intently. As she presented the coin near the totem's mouth, it stirred slightly, as if sensing the offering, then promptly swallowed it whole. Upon ingesting the coin, the totem seemed invigorated, its glow intensifying and its colossal form beginning to sway gently. Golden light flickered in its eye-like features, as though awaiting commands. This is utterly absurd. It actually consumes gold coins. Yanlin exclaimed in disbelief, his eyes wide with shock. But Gushi breathed a sigh of relief. In human lore, we call such creatures gold devourers. You should be grateful it only takes one coin to function. Hearing the term gold devourer, Yanlin winced with a pang of financial distress, falling silent thereafter. Regaining her composure, Gushi turned her attention back to the totem. She attempted to issue a command. Help us escape this space. In response, the totem swayed gently, performing a series of stretching motions before accelerating into swift, circular runs around the area. Gushi refrained from interrupting, signaling the others to do the same, allowing it to move freely. After completing 2 laps, the totem halted abruptly and, without warning, opened its mouth wide. Inside, energy surged tumultuously. Everyone instinctively stepped back, anticipating its next action. In the next moment, a torrent of energy erupted from the totem's mouth. Instantly, a powerful shockwave swept through, compressing the air like an invisible hand and producing a piercing shriek. Gushi felt her ears ringing uncontrollably, instinctively covering them with her hands. AIC swiftly erected a thin ice barrier to block the onslaught, while Ling Ling was sent flying backward, only to be caught and pulled back by Yanlin. The formidable energy struck the wall head-on. With a deafening roar, the wall shattered under the immense force, debris scattering everywhere. Behind the once solid barrier, a dark, winding passageway was revealed. Couldn't it have opened the door in a more civilized manner? This is downright violent. Yanlin couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. Ling Ling chimed in, bluntly remarking that this totemic creature was truly a squandering beast. Though the passage had been opened, none could discern the perils concealed within. Gushi maintained a vigilant gaze upon the corridor, cautioning, "Let's not lower our guard yet. We shall proceed slowly and observe." With those words, she cautiously took a step into the passage. AIC followed closely behind, while Ling Ling and Yanlin exchanged glances, nodded in agreement, and trailed after Gushi into the depths. A faint mist permeated the corridor, rendering the path beneath their feet slippery. The walls emitted a soft, phosphorescent glow, barely illuminating their way forward. In silence, the group advanced, with Gushi meticulously scouting ahead. AIC kept close behind, ever watchful of their surroundings, as Yanlin and Ling Ling remained equally alert, not daring to relax their vigilance. As they progressed, a sudden surge of energy flashed through the passage, swift as lightning, slicing through the air. Gushi and the fish companions reacted with instinctive agility, evading the threat. Subsequently, such energy bursts appeared intermittently, sometimes soaring overhead, other times grazing past their sides, yet all managed to dodge them. Gradually, they